Hey guys, it's Soul. This is another round of 6 interviews where I interviewed 6 of the biggest or upcoming mod teams in the Crusader Kings community in an effort to give you a peek behind the curtain and I guess just get to know the modders as people rather than just people who make something that you consume. I hope you enjoy the video. If you do, please like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I'd like to thank my channel members for their support. And if you'd like to become a channel member, you can do so through the membership tab. But in particular, I want to thank my Paladin tier members. Those are Dwayne the Rock Lobster, Adam Hicks, Dunyal, Valadar, Lachlan, Shadow King Drakon, Candriff, and Grazo. Appreciate you guys very much. And let's get on to the video. What's up, everybody? It's Soul, and today I'm here with the 3 primary leads for the war for Thedas, I believe is the name of the mod, which is Corin, Rex, and Tyler. If I said that wrong, you guys can Thedas at war. I just looked at it in my notes. I'm sorry. Well, end of interview. But hello, welcome.
Hi. Correct. Yeah, Thedas at war.
And this is a Dragon Age mod. So do you guys want to explain, I guess, briefly, all of you, one of you, what the goal for this mod is? Like, what time period are we looking at? Everything about it, for those who don't know.
Owen, do you want to go ahead as our lore person?
Sure, yeah. So generally what I do is I handle lore, the core of the writing, all that fun stuff, flow mapping, with Tylo, so on and so forth. So when this mod was created, it's so easy to play into what everyone knows from the video games, which is the Dragon Age. But Thedas is much larger. It has a deep history going so back to a lot of codex entries, which are marked as ancient. And then you have the actual ages. There are 9 ages in total. We have chosen the Glory Age, which takes place after the Second Blight. Just like 10 years, give or take, right after the Second Blight, where you have Orlais dealing with the Fall of the Dells, which is a huge lore bit for Dragon Age lore heads, which is when the Dells, the last kingdom, to a degree, of the elves, the Elvenon, fell, and then they were scattered into what we now know in universe as the Dalish tribes. It's essentially the last leg that the elves had before they fell from grace.
Interesting. That's actually a cool period to cover, especially, yeah.
It's the same time period where the first real monarch emerged in Ferelden, and then it immediately fell apart due to him dying prematurely. He wasn't able to secure that legacy, which is then where Calenhad, several ages later, comes in and becomes King Calenhad, and properly unites Ferelden as king, and that's how that sort of starts.
Interesting.
So, yep.
Yeah, and we also have as much as it most certainly won't be in our first release, I can promise that with certainty. We've got other areas of the map as well, which we do plan to at some point expand to, which are also, you've got usurpers and people forming kingdoms and everything. Hence the name Thedas at War. So it's a very dynamic period, is how I see it. It allows the player lots of freedom with what they can do.
No, that makes total sense. It kind of reminds me of how Elder Kings does the interregnum, because it's, just this period of total war all over Tamriel, so you don't really have to worry.
Very similar kind of period, to be honest.
Okay, well, there you go. That's the baseline. I think that's a fun exploration. Are you going to have any of the more, because I'm looking... We're going to talk about pictures because we have some stills that we're going to show later on in the interview. But I'm looking at some of them. Do you have any of the races that you're going to do? Are those going to be in the first releases, or is it just going to be like humans and elves probably at first?
So the first release will likely just be humans and elves, as they are our main players. There's only 2 other races in the Dragon Age series, those being the Kunari, or the Kossuth, or there's so many names for them, and the Dwarves.
Dwarves!
The dwarves are off map.
I see.
So, well, they're not off map; they're under map.
Right.
So they'll have a totally different map.
They'll have a totally different map, and so that's an entirely different system. And the Kunari are not here yet. They do a classic kind of equivalent of a Mongol invasion later down the line.
Oh, okay.
So for the moment, we're just focusing on getting humans and elves just right. And later on, we'll focus on making sure the other races are done perfectly as well.
Totally. And the reason I ask is because I wanted to ask all of you. So have you all played all the Dragon Age games?
Yes, sir.
Currently,
Absolutely
nearly done.
I
with,
have
the
Oh no.
I have.
Oh, no.
Have not. I've played the first 3, but not the new one yet.
Okay, that's fine. Because my question is, what was your favorite origin start in Dragon Age Origins? I have to know.
Okay, Kylo, maybe you start.
The one that I've done and I've actually finished the game with was Mage, but I think the best one is probably City Elf. So it's just the best for actually having an interesting story and setting everything up really interestingly for your character.
No, that's a great one. Who's next? Who wants to go next?
Yeah. So for me, I'm a lot like you, Soul. Dwarves. I love my dwarves.
Oh boy.
And I love how the dwarves play into a similar trope that we see with Lord of the Rings, with Tolkien's work.
Yeah.
But I love the spin on them. I love the blights. I love the Tigers. I love the Lyrium connection. The Titans. So I am a dwarf noble purist.
Beautiful.
I believe that it makes the most lore sense for them to get him out of all the characters. But anyway, that's a whole other tangent.
Yeah, go on.
Please, Rex, please stop me.
So unfortunately, I won't be stopping you because the origin I go with is dwarf noble as well.
Oh my god.
My reason is more simply because the part of the origin is you get stuck in the deep roads fighting Darkspawn, and it's suggested for like a few days, which is is the only warden who, before you become an actual warden, you've already fought Darkspawn like on your own for a while. And I just always loved that kind of, hey, yeah, no, my warden is going to be competent. My warden is going to be, good at this kind of stuff.
Oh my god, this is I hate to be the third person to say it, but I was also the dwarf noble. That was the one, and I liked it, and I've played it so many times too. Like the first one, at least because I agree with the city. The city elf is great. The mage one is great because you feel that oppression from like a real standpoint, but then you're like this dwarf noble. And I feel like more than the human noble, you get to feel this high, and then you feel that betrayal, and when you come back, you're like, this son of a bitch, you asshole.
Oh yeah, the fact that you fully interact with the people who betrayed you is just...
And that people know you,
good.
like they know your character, they know who you are, you have a backstory in this place. There's like a big precedence for you returning. Whereas, if you're like a city elf, you're just like some dude who lives on the streets, and they might be like, oh, what's up, guy? It's like somebody might know you. But the mage one is good too, because it ties back into that story, and there's a lot of stuff with the Fae and like the realm. It's great. Origins, great game. If you've never played it, guys, if you're listening to this and you've never played a Dragon Age, just play Origins, okay? Please.
Yeah, you won't regret it. You may struggle to get it working on PC.
Oh, dude,
there's some guides out there.
There's so many guides, and they're pretty simple to follow nowadays.
I was gonna say, I think I played it on like a 20-inch CRT when I don't even know, in high school or something. It was tiny, tiny little TV. Anyway, let's get into modding a little bit. So have all of you? Is this everybody's first big project they've worked on? Have you modded other games? Like, what's your modding backgrounds?
In real life, I'm a software engineer, so I have coding experience. But this is my first project because when I was browsing, I think the Crusader Kings Reddit when I saw a help request for this mod, and I'm a massive Dragon Age fan, so I was like, oh, I'll go check it out, and then I joined the team. I think around this time last year. Everyone was so nice, and I picked up all my modding experience from just people in the team that teach me everything. So
okay, yeah, that's on.
Yeah, we have some amazing people like Typical for the scripting side of things. The man who first did, I believe at least, did the first version of the tributary system for modding. So we've got some real talented people.
Hell yeah! And then what about you two, Rex or Corn?
Go ahead, Rex.
Colin, do you want to go? Okay.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So I think I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary in a few days, because I joined latter half of last December.
Wow.
I know. This is my first major modding project within CK3. I've been around talking to modders for a while though, and I've been modding in games like Skyrim and Stardew and Terraria and other such things, just personal things. But this was my first kind of leap into it.
Okay, and then you, Corner, are you the person who started the mod?
No. No.
Who the hell started? Who
We'll
started
get
it?
to that.
Oh my god. Okay,
Yeah.
go on.
That's a story in and of itself. Great guys, a lot of them. For me, I mostly came into it. I dove into Crusader Kings 3 shortly after it came out because I'm a big role player, big writer. That's where I fell into all of this. I love Dragon Age. 10 years waiting for the next game, you're dying, you just want something.
Yeah.
And I came across, I was just browsing, the just the general Crusader Kings content, and I heard that there was, just randomly on a whim, I heard that there was a Crusader Kings mod. I decided to check it out, and then I didn't touch it for like months after I initially joined the server, and then I joined back up to apply, and that's pretty much. So this is my first real dive into being a mod designer in any respect. I've got plenty of experience writing. I do a lot of professional game mastering, that sort of stuff. But yeah, this is my first real project in the modding space.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to get into the, because all three of you are the leads, but none of you all have all now each said that you joined the team, and yet I don't see any of those other people here. So what you gotta tell people what happened. We have to know, in as few words as possible, if it's weird.
If you want to cover it.
Yeah, so basically, like I said, when I first joined, there was a put out for help, and what essentially happened is the original founder of the mod, who's called Aaron, he had something come up in his life, so he left the mod team for a bit. And when that happened, most of the people on the mod team kind of went inactive, so the mod was essentially in a state of standstill. And then Pounce, who is another founder member of the mod, put out a call for help, and that's when we got like a large resurgence of people joining the team. A lot of the people that joined were around the time that I joined. And
I know I was I was the first of that wave. I'm pretty certain. Then you were the second, Tyler.
So we've had a lot of, and then with a lot of people joining, a few of the old people came back, and we eventually managed to like refound like another team to continue working on the mod. And then Aaron has since returned after everything sorted itself out for him, which is great.
Oh, good.
But he's no longer in a position to lead it, so it's currently fallen to us.
Yeah, we with the people leaving and the people going inactive and things, it required a bit of a shuffle around of kind of leadership, which we ran past everyone, and some people's lives changed, and can't take the leadership role as much and stuff like that.
No, absolutely.
So it fell to us.
Like any other developmental team, when you talk to them about the infrastructure, at some point it'll get reworked.
Oh, dude, I've talked to so many mod teams now, and honestly, it's amazing that these things even get made, because obviously you're all doing this all for free as a hobby, on top of probably having other things that you like to do besides modding, maybe, I don't know. And it's always crazy to hear how many things come up, how many people like rotate through these teams. So to hear that the entire leadership of the team has shifted before the mod has even come out. How long has the mod been in development, actually?
So the mod first started development back in 2023 in January.
Okay.
So that's
almost 2 years.
Like 2 years, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 years of technical development. I would say around about a year and a few months of actual development due to the dead period.
Right. Oh, actually, you know what? You should figure out a way to put that in the mod, the dead period. I don't know what you would do. Just like a little lore book that you can find that talks about it. So, people are going to ask, we talked a little bit about it before we started, but when release?
To be determined. As a volunteer project, always putting a deadline and stuff can be a killer of passion.
Oh yeah.
So we work more based on like content kind of deadlines, in the sense of once we've reached this amount of content, we might be comfortable, but that can change. So very much to be determined.
we do have a few work in progress ideas when we'd like to release, but obviously, with it being a voluntary project, it depends on the amount of time we all have at the moment. So no firm deadline.
So what are the top priorities then for like content wise features that you want to be sure are in this first release before you're like, okay, we can push this out?
I would say the biggest one would be what kind of bookmarks are named after, which would be, so our bookmark is named literally Fall of the Dales. We'll see that later with one of the snapshots, with one of the images.
Okay.
And so having the Fall of the Dales in the Fall of the Dales bookmark would be, quite a big thing to need.
Yep.
But I think generally it would be having unique content for each of the main areas of the map, so that when you're playing in an area, you don't feel like it's like a dead zone of content.
Right. Yeah. No, that's always the problem too with the first release for a lot of total conversion mods, where you really wanted to put it out, and then you have maybe this whole world you're making, and you're like, well, don't look over there though, because I've not really touched it, and then it'll be like some guy.
Yeah.
Or they'll just be like a default CK3 like race or like like culture or whatever. You're like, why is there this random Iranian guy just like in the corner of the map? I don't understand.
Why are Vikings invading Ferelden?
I mean, why not? Honestly, they deserve to invade everywhere. Let them do it. Let them pillage.
We should have a little Hastings invader Easter egg.
Do it. Do it with
Hastings teleporting through the realms.
If you do that, do it as the dwarves. Say they're like blight infected. I don't know, and then just send them up. Just hand wave the lore. You're like, I don't know. It's the blight. Who cares? It's fun. Okay, so we do have a few images for the mod that you guys have sent me. I'm trying to figure out how I want to show these off, because I would like to just click them on my screen here. Okay. So the first one, it looks like it's the initial bookmark. Does somebody want to talk about this? It says work in progress, as you can see right here. When this is on your screen, guys, just as an FYI, you're not going to see me moving my mouse. It's just going to be the image, and we're just going to chat about it. But do you guys want to talk about this first one? This bookmark, and maybe explain some of these characters for our viewers.
Yeah, Colin, do you want to have a go again, lore person?
Sure,
you know more about these characters than the rest of us.
Sure, yeah. So the Glory Age, the Falls of the Dells, as I sort of said earlier, it's going to be the main attraction for a lot of people. When you hear Dragon Age, the only time that we really hear of the Fall of the Dells is in Origins and in Inquisition. So essentially 10 years have passed since the Second Blight has come to its end, which means now that the land is blight scarred, the Darkspawn have ran off, you have now a return to a semblance of normalcy for the rest of Thedas. In the east, in what is known as Denerim at this time, you have Kedman, who is the aspiring monarch who wishes to unite Ferelden, specifically the Clanes, which are a variation of what we know as the modern day Ferelden by Dragon Age standards. Then you have the Chasyn to the south. You have the Avar to the west along the mountains, and you, in the eastern side, you have all these rulers who, technically speaking, can unite Ferelden. You can take many different paths. You can pursue different avenues. You'll see some familiar places. You'll see Castle Kuzland. You'll see Amaranthine, Redcliffe, the Brazilian Forest. You'll see Guarin, that we never see in game. You'll actually be able to go there. You'll be able to rise up as a turn, become an Arl, become a ban as you feel and unite Ferelden. Then on the other side, with Orlais and the entirety of our elves, the Dells, you have to contend with not only other issues that Orlais faces, such as keeping their subjects in line, but you will also have to face the Dells, the conflicting tensions between the elves and the humans. The elves didn't really help themselves during the Second Blight because they pretty much watched the Darkspawn do their thing. They just stood indifferent, very similar to The Hobbit, where where Smaug decimates Erebor. The elves refused to lose any of their people and just walled themselves off and pretty much went full isolationist, which humans have never been kind to elves anyway. This only has made the matter worse, and a lot of what this mod will offer is whether or not Hassandriel, Finarel, or anyone else can prevent it, survive it, perhaps change the outcome of the Dells being completely destroyed, or if you prefer, you can be the Emperor, leading the firm strike to decimate the elves and to send them fleeing until your heart's content.
Sounds like a great time. I mean, I think I would definitely want to play as those elves. Looks like it's a tough start. So as you know, I'm a masochist and I like pain and making myself feel bad.
You did the Peak Rebellion recently.
Oh my god. I
saw that.
I don't even want to talk about it. Somebody I think the person who made it I think the person who made it commented on that video and they're like, not hard enough. And then
we do have a character like that.
Oh, do you?
So not on this bookmark, but they're one of we've taken advantage of the character of the week system on the main menu.
Okay.
Because they're a smaller character, but we have one for when players get their hands on this. I won't say any more because they're hidden and they're an Easter egg.
You'll notice them for sure.
You'll notice them. Oh, absolutely.
They sort of stick out when you look.
And they're quite a bit of fun. Two other characters I will go in a bit of detail here is the Emperor himself and then one of his vassals, Brew. So the Cordelis Draken II here, from a lore point of view, is only the second ruler of Orlais. So Orlais, in the grand scheme of things, is very recent in our time period, along with like the Orlesian Chantry that we all know from the games. And Cordelis Draken's father was Cordelis I. To do a real world analogy, kind of a combination of, I would say, Constantine plus Charlemagne. Like a very legendary figure who founded a religion and conquered a lot of land and united people.
Okay.
So what this has led to, with Orlais being so recent, is that you have some rebellious vassals, those who still don't like the idea of a united Orlais, and one of these figures is Rue, who's kind of the last holdout of the old way of doing things before the Empire united. And one of the things that makes the Emperor a tad bit harder than just completely curb stomping the elves is the fact that you will have to deal with a rebellion at the same time. And as a player, you can actually play as this rebellion and perhaps win.
Is that the Syrian situation?
Yeah, that's the
Syrian
one situation.
That's the stuff. That is the stuff. And now I see there's a couple. That sounds. I'm a big fan of rebelling against the system. So always a good time. And I'm seeing a couple other maps. So it looks like we have the initial map that I'm looking at with like Orlais and the Dales and like Denerim. That I'm seeing the big. Is this just like the kingdoms or like the regions as they are at the game start?
So we've got two maps here. So the first one is just a map of what we have currently. This is the borders literally at game start. And then the second one is a close-up of the kingdoms within the Empire of Orlais going into Ferelden.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Specifically also showing off the coat of arms that we've done so far for the kingdoms. Not so far, we've done all of them.
Yeah, they look great.
So far, we've done all the kingdoms.
And then
the big plan the big plan is to this is more just like a teaser generally of how we're doing it, how we're breaking things up with lore. The best part of modding for a Dragon Age conversion mod is determining what lore exists and what does not. Love BioWare, love everything they've done. But the contradictions of lore, as someone who mainly writes and determines what lore exists and what does not, it's been fun. And so pretty much Amaranthine, Denerim, eventually you'll see the Free Marches, Tevinter, Antiva, you name it, Navarra. So this is more so just a little breakdown of how we're sort of sectioning things off.
Yeah. I think it's also a comparison here of when we say that all is a united empire and Ferelden's a fractured warring states. You can really see it in the main map image with all big Orlais and then all these tiny little pockets over in Ferelden.
Yeah, geez. And then what is this? Because I'm, I've obviously played the games, but it's one, been a minute, and two, I'm not near a lore expert on anything. What is this northern area that is empty up here? I'm just curious.
That is, so you have the mountain range that you see immediately across the sea. That's the free marches.
Okay.
So Dragon Age 2, Kirkwall, is in the free marches, where Hulk exists and all the game takes place. That's just one city, one city state, a collection of the free marches.
Oh, I see.
Which
You've
is
also got Starkhaven and Ostwick, which might be names that ring bells.
Ostwick. Yep.
Okay.
And then sort of on the border of Orlais, Navarra, where Cassandra Pentagast, her family comes from.
The goat.
In the mod specifically for the Glory Age, the line of House Pentagast will actually be formed.
Oh.
Yeah. So the founder is literally kicking around at this point, and that's going to be the main. That's a big thing for Navarra. Yep. I mean, Navarra. I'm not a bigger lore person as you, Cohen, but I'm pretty certain Navarra is still either really recent or hasn't formed yet. One of the two. I think it's recent.
It is currently in the midst of forming.
Right. Yes.
So part of the gameplay will be forming it as Caspar Pentagast.
Ooh, that's a good one.
A man who apparently lived to some ridiculous age of, what was it, 100 and something?
Yes.
As a human.
Oh my god, that sounds awesome. So I'm looking now at these other ones. I'm just going to jump. So is this next one is this the culture map? The Settled Dalish, the Orlesians, the Hotaran, the Clane?
Yes. So Tyler, do you want to talk about the good old cultures?
Is the culture map. So one thing we faced when, especially going to Orlais, is since Orlais is its entire thing, it was just one massive blob of just Orlesian. So we've since then we've gone through it and we've added in smaller, unique subcultures for each of the areas in Orlais based on stuff that we got from the lore of the games to give them more flavor. And we're going through and adding in unique events, unique traditions for each of those at the moment. The plan is maybe to do the same thing in Ferelden when we get to it, but we're not over there yet. And as you can see, there's the Settled Dalish, there's the Avar, the Chastened, and the rest of them. As you get further across, there's we have a lot of the cultures from the games in the files. They're just off map at the moment.
Oh, I see.
We have like Tevinter, Navarra, most of the ones you can think of.
Antiva, Ravane.
Yes. So you can obviously make them in with the custom character creation yourself, but the
interesting.
And there will be some human off-map cultures present on the map technically, as like individuals.
Okay.
Here and there, you have to go searching.
It's stuff that we. The main thing for this mod, for those that may be worrying, at the end of the day, we have to make decisions for what Crusader Kings fundamentally is to make it mechanically appealing. We will we will always strive for it to make sense. The lore to add up. We will only add things that make sense, and so on and so forth. We won't do anything completely insane.
No, that makes
so to kind of go on to that, in terms of content that we've added as technically mod canon. An example would be the Brazilians. The Brazilians are human tribes, because what we simply know is that when the elves got there was a bunch of human tribes that resided there, and all we know is the elves slaughtered them. So he kind of extrapolated from that and decided it would be a fun way to add some unique content. It's a unique area. It's a dense forest filled with ancient spirits and stuff. So might as well add something unique. With the Orlesians, again, this is a way to expand on some content. Like it gives us a chance for us to show the division between the subcultures that are still far more Syrian, and then the subcultures which are far more Orlesian.
Okay.
So
Okay. No, that's I mean that makes total sense, especially from a like a mod perspective. You've got to add things that you feel are unique. And speaking of adding things, I see all these religions, which religion plays a huge part, as we know, in Crusader Kings. So you want to talk a little bit about some of these cool religions we got bopping around over here.
Yeah, so when since Orlais itself is very, very new on the start of the game, you can see that there's the Orlesian Chantry and there's the old Cult of the Maker, which was what the Andrastianism religion was before the Orlesian Chantry came into existence. So right now you can see a lot of the rulers in Orlais are converting to the Orlesian Chantry on the game start. So it will let you to do some fun things there. If you want to play Cult of the Maker, want to reform Cult of the Maker into his own thing, or work with the Orlesian Chantry. You've got the Veravenuris, which is the Elven gods, which like in the new Dragon Age game that you see. And then going further across, you've got the standard Avar, Chased, and Rucidus Cultus, which ruled the old tribalistic religions that do show up in the games like very briefly. And we've kind of expanded them out as much as we can to give them cool flavor. We've also got a lot of like with the cultures, we've got a lot of off-map ones. So like the cult from Haven in Dragon Age Origins, we do have there an off-map religion that you can play with if you do want to create a character that way. And there's other examples of that, like the Blades of Hassarian.
Hassarian the base.
Ooh, very nice. Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
So we've got out of our way to try and get everything in that we think players will want to play with.
Okay.
And to clarify, just because Tylo brought it up, the Evaniris, that the religion of the elves, it is going to be an interpretation based on what we know of them as gods. So just for people who have played Belgard, don't walk into it with a lot of information that we get from that game. This is going to be a more Origins to Inquisition interpretation of those gods. Now, with what we know from Belgard, we are cross-referencing to see what matches up. But overall, we will go with what the elves would see them as, rather than what they may actually be.
Okay.
Yeah. It is one of the key things is that Dragon Age has quite a split in most of its kind of faiths, religions, cultures, etc., between what we know as players, that kind of meta level, and then what people in the world would know. So we always have to make sure that we're making sure that we go for what would the elves actually know, what do the elves believe,
right?
Rather than what the player knows,
right?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I think that's smarter, honestly. Like that way you can maybe play that role a little more fruitfully, as opposed to being
more immersive.
Yeah, you're not metagaming in that sense, which is good. I like that. So I'm looking now. This is the final image that you guys shared with me. So we've seen the map, a couple different maps, and it's a little bit smaller. But you've sent me a bigger, or I should say, it's a good size. But you sent me an even larger map that you have drawn here, and it's quite extensive. Do you want to point out some things on? Is this the planned map?
This is the entire map of Thedas that we know from BioWare.
Oh, I see.
We do plan on covering like our biggest goal. Hopefully we'll reach it. I mean, we plan to, but we'll see where life takes us all.
Right, of course.
If the world ends in 10 years or not. But we plan on adding every state that we can.
Okay.
So obviously there's parts of this map, especially off to the west, past Orlais, where there isn't any like states. There's very even few people even. So therefore we're unlikely to be adding that. We'll probably do events on things like that, mentioning if you're on the border area, mentioning those people. But we certainly want to add things like Tevinter, the Anderfell's Free Marches, Antiva, Ravane, Saharan, etc. Which covers most of this map. It's pretty much just the far west and the far northwest, which aren't covered by states.
Okay. No, it's really well drawn. So, I have a couple more questions that we'll, I guess, we'll jump into before we. Oh, okay. And we do have the original map, and I'll make sure I throw that on screen. I'll put them side by side as I see you just drop this in the chat.
Okay.
That is useful because my My brain. I haven't played a Dragon Age game in a minute. Oh man, look at this. Yep. Okay, now it's coming back to me. It's all coming back.
All those memories.
Obviously, flooding in. You know, this might be a hot take here, but I actually like Dragon Age Inquisition. I'm sorry. I know people they feel weird about it.
No, it's a good game.
Yeah, it's one of the things I think that being a mod team for Dragon Age, I think it mellows people's opinions on the games, which is nice.
Well, that's
we
good.
Kind of take it as one big thing rather than dividing between ourselves, which very useful.
The mod has been a really good place to sit back and disassociate yourself from just being a fan, and now you're thinking from a critical perspective outside of that as a creator. You're like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. I don't like that. I really like that. Okay, can we do this? No, we can do that. Okay. And that's something that I really, really enjoy about all of this, because we can take so much of this and just dissect it and focus on it and clean some things up that, may have been contradicted. And what I really enjoy of Inquisition
came out.
Oh yeah. Velgarde. It's definitely been interesting, but it's fun to see. I really enjoy Inquisition at its core. Aside from its glaring issues,
right? Of course, it's not perfect. It's
still a pretty good game. In general, a lot of the lore building they do is pretty solid, and at the end of the day, it's better than nothing.
Yeah,
Dragon Age 2 is my favorite game. So,
oh my god, we
got Dragon Age 2.
Oh my god,
Tyler's in the corner over there, like Dragon Age 2.
Hey, I'm in that corner as well.
Yeah, he's
my favorite.
Origins is my favorite.
I was gonna say Origins is probably my favorite, only because I think I played it so much at like the key time when I was, like it just came out at the right time for me to be like, oh yeah, I'm crazy about this thing. Such a rich game, and seeing its legacy now in recently, because it was obviously a spiritual successor to Baldur's Gate 2, and now seeing Baldur's Gate 3 in some ways call back even just to Origins, if you want to be like, if you want to look at it like that, it's interesting to see how the industry has sort of come back around to it. I mean, we had a turn-based RPG, which was a JRPG still, but it was nominated for the game, or like the Game Awards Game of the Year. So it's crazy to see that these classical RPGs are coming back into into vogue, as it were.
Yeah,
which is good. I think it's great. I have not played Veilguard. Right. I think it was too long. I'm sort of having this worry that like with the Elder Scrolls, it's the timelines. It's been so long since these games have come out that I'm like, I don't know if I care anymore. And that was kind of how I felt about Veilguard. I was like, I'll just play the old one if I really want to play it again.
Yeah, like I'm speaking as someone who's not played it and probably won't for a very long while because I just don't have the time to. But I just get drip fed all the lore and information and gameplay from these guys. So
yeah. As someone who has played the game, and I'm not gonna force anyone's hand. This is just a modder, a writer's word. You should play it at least once. If you're a Dragon Age fan, just play it at least once. In my opinion, I've played it. I dumped 60 hours into it. But I also like to do the side quests and every little thing about it. It's great in certain ways,
right?
And in other ways, you just wanna cry. But I still think you should play it at least once. For me personally, I played it once. I tried to play it a second time. I'm just not into it. And that's okay. Just dislike it for the right reasons. Dislike it for the right reasons. Don't go online hating on it for a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Always. Let's keep, just because obviously this community has had quite a bit of controversy and stuff around the new game. This community, it's a fun game, everyone. Let's keep it open for everyone and let everyone enjoy how they want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
No,
remember that we're all fans.
We're all fans. We all just want games to be good. I hate how many people just get so negative. Like, I mean, I was, obviously I'm a huge nerd, so I was trolling around the Game Awards, watching all the trailers. And the amount of people that freak out about anything, it just blows my mind. I'm like, there's other shit we can worry about. But we're getting off topic here. This is not this is not the place for this. So because we're running close to about the time that I feel like we've talked about the mod, we've talked about the development, we talked about the not release date, the TM soon, and just in general, what are things that the team is looking for? What are things that you're hoping to achieve within this next year? Let the people know what you got going on.
Ooh.
Who wants to go first?
We could do each of the departments that we represent. So
Yeah,
please.
That's great.
Because that's a nice way of doing it. So, as the kind of artist representation, I can say very much so that the artist's hope in the next year is to have all the coat of arms done down to the baronies that is on the map. I'm happy to give a progress report on that, which is we are now down to just the counties and baronies, with the counties chugging along quite well. I think the artist is very much just constant just tweaking and making sure everything is interconnected and polished. Is kind of the artist department. We have recently, I believe, as of like a week ago, fully finished adding every single ruler into Orlais with families and stuff. We've got how their appearances to do, but all of their traits and families and everything has been done for Orlais. And so the artist department has a general policy of west to east. So we'll be heading to the elves and then the Ava and then Ferelden and all of that next.
Okay.
So that's kind of idea of the artist department. Just continue chugging along and polishing everything.
Sounds like a good way to be.
Yep. Hilo, would you like to share?
No, script-wise, I just want to give a huge thank you to Typical and Stocky, who are like the two main
workhorses.
They do so much, and Typical has recently finished a very cool mechanic and has started to work on a new one, and one that I'm really excited that's coming out. We don't know when it will come out, but Stocky's work on it is magic. So seeing all the work done on that is great, and it's going to take a while to get everything done, but it's just so cool just to see it all come together. And I help where I can, but Typical is just crazy.
I always love to hear about a good magic system getting added. I think it's such a fun thing that so many teams have done in their own way. So I'm curious to see how you guys do it whenever we see it.
Yeah, our magic is inherently tied to the lore, and
very
how it's
dangerous.
viewed as well is a major facet.
Yeah, true, absolutely,
with the circles and everything.
And Templars, so
Templars did nothing wrong, by the way. Go on, Corn.
So to ride that topic, for the writers, mostly it's there's so much to write. When you look at everything that you can add in with writers, with the flavor events, just generalized flavor events for certain locations like Orlais, the Dells, Ferelden, it's overwhelming. So generally speaking, as a department, the writers usually tackle the main meat. So like here recently, the Syrian Rebellion, Ferelden, the Dells. We've done a bit of Ferelden, the Brazilian Forest, Chastened Avar. Mostly the main meat of what you could really experience should you reach certain thresholds with objectives. As for we just finished the Syrian Rebellion. We've got a few loose ends to wrap up, and naturally, to clarify, it's never going to be done, at least in terms of the writing side of things. There's so much that you can go in and add in, like certain little flavor events that you didn't really think about, and someone who's testing the mods, like, oh hey, what about this? You know what? That's a good point. That completely missed us. Let us write that in. That's pretty much the writer's never-ending experience, which is nice because you can take a break from these heavy main story beats that a player gets to experience, and then you get to see, like, if you're just a little band of Lothering, you're like, oh, I'm just a little band. I'm not swinging with these titans yet. Oh, I get some cool little events. Oh, an apostate's in Lothering. What do I do about it? Do I inform the Chantry? Do I deal with this myself? The Chantry won't like it if I deal with it myself, but this person's killing people. How am I going to do that? And you can expect events for magic when we start getting magic working, Templars, all that fun mage gameplay. You will have a chance to indulge in as well. But currently, we are shifting our efforts to the delves, the elves, and the events of the Red Crossing.
Oh God, yeah.
Which will be the Red Crossing. Without making this even longer than it is, the Red Crossing is pretty much a series of events that led to the official start of the war between the Delves and Orlais, which then leads to the Exalted March that destroys the Delves, in canon at least.
Yeah, and the reason my reaction is because in World and in the player base, it is a heavily debated chain of events. Not in what happened, but like who's guilty.
Who's guilty? Where does the finger get pointed? And the mod,
and we have a way of dealing with that.
And you'll be able to pick your sides if you so desire and suffer the consequences. Like the sacking of Val Royeaux, Hallam Sharal, you name it. You will have all of that to explore, to deal with, to suffer. And that is one thing as well. Do not get it twisted. Dragon Age is a dark setting, and we are sticking to that. There are going to be some events that are pretty horrifying, especially when magic is introduced and we have blood mages running around.
Oh boy.
We have Maleficarum, those that get possessed, those that turn into abominations.
I think the way I've always seen Dragon Age, if just to help the audience if they don't know the setting, it's the world of Elder Scrolls with the tone of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So all of the races and magic of the Elder Scrolls kind of thing, and the kind of classic RPG thing, but with the horrible things that can happen, like in Game of Thrones.
Yep. And for those, at least to help with the racial tensions, it's gonna feel similar to The Witcher between the elves and the humans.
Yeah, they do.
Yep. It feels very similar on that respect. So be ready for that. You will have to deal with that. Like if an elven lord gets with a human lord, that's gonna cause some drama.
Boy.
Especially if there are any children that are conceived.
Gross.
That's gonna be a whole thing. And you will have to deal with the consequences like at any other Crusader Kings run.
Yeah. I think wrapping up with what's planned for the future, I think I can give a gentle teaser of what the Ferelden content is in store, because I know many people love Ferelden. Good old Alistair and all of the Terrans and stuff. The Dog Lords. Is that we are very much we are probably going to be adding a struggle to the region. And helping to simulate all of that Thunderdome of warlords.
Hell yeah!
So it'll be a very chaotic place to play in, but a place where power rises and power falls quite quickly.
I think that people are gonna love that. I have to ask before I let you guys go, Corin, is your picture a dwarf married to Morrigan?
Yeah. So here, I will let you, if you want, I give you permission to share this. I had our permission because the Dragon Age brain rot has been exceptional.
Oh my god, look at that.
This is my dwarf noble Durin Iduken with Morrigan and their son, who I designate not as Kieran. Horrible name. For any Kierans out there, sorry, not sorry. But his name is Trian.
Okay, hell yeah.
For those that know the reference, you know the reference. For those that don't, go play Origins.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just looking at the picture and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's so funny. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for your time. I appreciate all three of you. This is our first multi-person interview. Maybe our only one. I don't know how many of these I'm going to do, but I appreciate you guys taking the time to come in here and do this little interview with me today. And also for, giving us quite a lot of teasers and a lot of background for the lore. I think it's going to be really exciting. Hopefully, this time next year, we'll all be maybe playing it. I'm not going to put that's a long time, so maybe that's a comfortable distance. That's almost 3 years. I'm not going to pressure you though. I know these things take time, so hopefully we'll just all have some good progress at the very least. But
one thing I'll say is to the community is, hey, if you want to see more teasers, we do post them quite regularly on our Discord.
Links.
Yeah.
Discord especially. Discord is the best place to keep up with the mod, to get in touch with us. If you want to help the team, we're always accepting new members. So please, we would appreciate the help.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys
very much for having us. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Of course. I'll see you guys. All right, so for this section, this is going to work a little bit differently. So I reached out to Fun from the Shogunate team. They are the Japanese lead, I believe. I don't know if they're one of the leads or if they're the main lead. We'll get into that as we go through. But they speak Japanese, and so instead of forcing them to have to struggle with some sort of auto-translation software, we decided that we would do a text-based interview and that I would just read their responses. So on screen, you will have rolling Shogunate in the background, and then I will be popping the question up on the screen, and then you'll be able to see, or rather hear, the responses to the question that's on screen at that moment. I hope you guys enjoy, and let's just jump into it. So the first question I had was, are you the original creator of the Shogunate mod? Yes, I started the project and have been leading it ever since. However, I'm not the only one developing the mod. I have many contributors from all over the world helping me. I also ported the core data from NMIH, the well-known Japanese mod for CK2, with the permission of the original author. And for those of you who don't know, that mod is called Nova Monumenta Iaponia Historica. I don't know if I said that right, but it'll be linked down below. When did you start working on the mod and why? I started the project right after the first release of CK3. I first published the mod on the Steam Workshop in October 2020, so it was about 4 years ago. At that time, I really wanted to play that NMIH mod in the updated CK3 environment. That was my first main motivation for starting development. First, I asked the original NMIH author if they were planning to port it over to CK3, but they said they had no plans to do so, so I got their permission and decided to do it myself. However, there are a lot of differences between the mechanics of CK2 and CK3. Because of this, it was almost impossible to recreate the mod perfectly, so I decided not to simply port everything, but rather to focus on porting the essential data. Ultimately, my mod is very different from the original. To make this clear, I also changed the name of the mod from NMIH to Shogunate. And that was question 1. And just as a FYI before we continue, they prepared these questions in Japanese and then translated them to English with the help of an AI. Question 2, is this the first mod you've ever worked on? This isn't my first mod project, but it is my first time working on a total conversion mod. What made you get into modding? And just as a clarification again, the questions, I often ask multi-layered questions, so this is still technically question 2. I actually started with a localization project. I'm a Japanese, and until recently, Paradox Games didn't have Japanese language support, so I joined a Japanese localization team to improve the player experience. That's what really got me interested in modding. Do you like Paradox Games? Absolutely. Paradox Games offers so much room for modification. Modders can really change so many aspects of the games, from the user interface to the game mechanics themselves. Plus, Paradox clearly values modders and the modding community. They provide us with a really easy to use modding environment, even going so far as to invest extra resources in it. What do you specialize in, and do you do much modding now as the lead? My specialization is coding. Currently, I'm writing almost all the scripts for the mod while also leading the project. On the other hand, I rely on collaborators for expertise in other areas such as 3D modeling and map creation. So there you go, they are the lead of the project. Question 3. Shogunate is fairly unique in that the leads and teams are seemingly split between Japanese and English localization teams. How does that work? Actually, we don't really separate the team strictly by language. We do separate the English and Japanese channels on our project Discord, but that's mainly for smoother communication. We have a lot of Japanese developers, of course, given that the focus of the mod is Japanese, so we need the Japanese channels in addition to the English one. Unfortunately, not all of our Japanese members are fluent in English. I'm a case in point. How does the communication, the coordination work between those teams then? Primarily, I act as a bridge between the two channels. I'll take the discussions from the Japanese channel and summarize or translate them for the English channel and vice versa. It can be difficult to convey every detail, but we haven't had any major communication problems, thanks in part to some pretty good machine translation tools. How many people are on the project total? We have about 35 people with the developer role on Discord. I tend to give that role to people who make significant contributions, so this number includes some developers who are currently inactive. We also have many contributors without a specific role who provide valuable ideas and feedback. Are there any holes you're looking to fill within the team at this time? At this point in the project, we could really use more developers with visual expertise. We're lucky to have AJ, a well-known 3D designer who also works on the EK2 mod, helping us out, but he's pretty busy these days. Also, a lot of our 2D graphics, such as the user interface, are still using the vanilla assets, so if anyone with those skills is interested in joining us, we would love to have them. Question 4. As someone leading a historical total conversion mod, do you have a history background? To be honest, I'm just a history enthusiast. Really, I rely heavily on the historical data from the NMIH mod and the expertise of the other developers on that team. We're fortunate to have some incredibly knowledgeable people contributing, so I'm confident that we can maintain a reasonable level of historical accuracy in the mod. What do you do professionally if you don't mind sharing? I used to work as a professional game programmer, so coding is my main area of expertise. These days I'm in video game journalism, writing articles for game news outlets. In fact, I've actually covered CK3 and Shogunate itself in my articles. Question 5. Was a historical mod or game something you always wanted to work on, or did you consider other settings as well? What were they, if so? In general, I focus on creating mods that improve the player experience. For example, I created the nameplates mod to display character names and titles in the event screen, and the extended outliner mod to add more useful information to the outline. On top of that, I sometimes create mods just for the technical challenge. I'm a programmer at heart. As I mentioned earlier, Shogunate was my first total conversion, so it was my really ambitious attempt. I'm a big fan of Paradox games, and I'm also Japanese, so naturally I have a strong interest in Japanese history, but I didn't start this project just because I wanted to make a historical mod. Honestly, when I started, I didn't fully realize how difficult that would be. Question 6. This is one of the only major historical total conversion mods for CK3 and one of the most popular mods in general, which is a huge feat. Thank you for the high praise of the mod. I really appreciate it. As a Japanese, is it important for you to share your history through this mod? I'd say I'm more a fan of historical games in general, rather than someone specifically driven by my Japanese identity. My main goal is to share interesting history. I'm very happy if people use this mod as one of the many ways to learn about the history of this region, though. Were there any misconceptions about the Japanese people you've tried to correct with the mod itself? Not directly, no. However, we always make an effort to portray historical figures accurately. We don't simply adopt traditional portrayals. Instead, we represent them based on objective evidence and recent research. For example, if we find evidence to the contrary, we will reevaluate a character who is usually depicted as a simple villain defeated by a hero. What do you hope people come away from the mod with? When people think of medieval Japan, some may imagine brave and exotic battles between samurai and ninja, but Japanese history is also filled with blood-soaked power struggles, fierce ethnic conflicts, and the everyday lives of normal people. In this respect, people's behavior isn't so different between Japanese and Western history. This mod recreates Japanese history using the mechanics of CK3, which was designed to simulate Western history. In doing so, it shows that there are similarities between the two histories. That's what I want to convey to players. Question 7. The Shogun period spanned from 1185 all the way to 1868. You guys have already done a lot as far as representing different time periods pre and post Shogunate within this mod, but would you ever consider representing a sort of chain or struggle during the Boshin War between the Emperor and the last Shogunate? I think it could be really unique. Obviously, CK3 only stretches to 1453, but I'm certain you could just mess with the date and some aesthetic choices, perhaps a gun model and some 19th century uniforms and make it work. Also, as an FYI, they already do go past 1453 in the mod. Are there any additional expansions to the map or current timeline planned or new start dates in work as well? Thanks for the great question. We actually get this a lot from our players. You're right, it is possible to recreate the Boshin War in the 19th century if we make the effort to create the historical data and 3D models. However, it could end up being a superficial recreation. The core mechanics of CK3 are designed to simulate medieval feudalism, so simply translating that to early modern Japan in the 19th century wouldn't work very well. For this reason, we currently believe the mods for EU4 or Viki 3 are better suited to represent the last Shogunate. However, the developers of the NMIH mod are working hard to implement the Battle of Sekigahara, the largest and most decisive battle in Japanese history, and to expand the timeline of their mod. Once they're done with that, we'll integrate those new features into the Shogunate mod as well. And even after that, there's still the giant climax of the Mongol invasions to consider. There's already a clever submod that adds the Korean peninsula to the map, and we may have to do something similar in terms of map expansions when we implement the Mongol invasions. And finally, question 8. What is your advice to someone who wants to get into modding or start creating their own mods? I would recommend starting with the simplest mod possible. It's great to have big ambitions, but trying to create a complicated mod right off the bat can prevent even veteran modders from finishing it. Also, be sure to back up your work frequently. Actually, this is the first time somebody has said this. It's very common for even a small change to break something in development, but if you have backups, you can always revert to a previous version. Knowing that you can always go back allows you to experiment more frequently and try some riskier ideas without worrying too much. Thank you for listening. This has been fun. What's up, everybody? It's Soul, and today I am here with Super7700, the creator and lead developer of Sons of the Lightning. How are you, Super?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are you going?
I'm good. Wondering why I didn't just say like 7700 and said 7700, but I'm gonna live with
Well,
that.
I mean that's how I always imagine it in my head. So
Oh, well, there we go.
you got it right, yeah.
Well, good, and I appreciate you. I want the audience to know that Super's all the way out in New Zealand, so this is quite the coordination challenge, but we made it work, and I appreciate that.
Pre-work call.
Yeah, exactly. And we've worked together out of a lot of these teams. I've worked with a couple of them, but you and I have worked together extensively because, you helped me with my Sons of the Lightning video that I made a couple months ago because you're the creator and the lead of this mod. And I think for a while we're the sole developer. Do you have other people on the team now?
Well, so it's the way it's kind of worked is that I'm kind of been the sole developer in the sense of most of the code. I mean, but we've got a big community and a lot of the ideas, a lot of the lore is created with the community, and also there are members of the community as well, like so for instance, the Slavic side of our lore and sort of the some of the Slavic faiths have been worked on by Inzan 6.
Okay.
Yeah, who has also done some of the coding to implement those. So while I'm sort of been, I guess, the main developer, there other people have contributed ideas and contributed sort of, I guess, concrete.
So it's been like
maybe it's sort of faith doctrines, or
right. It's like a collaborative
and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I really want to foster. And I guess my Discord community is that collaborative environment where people can just throw ideas, and then we can cook on them. We can we can work together to make something that's fun and works in the game, and I guess also feels authentic.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. And for those of you who don't know, if you're not familiar with Sons of the Lightning, because I didn't even think to talk about this, but it's a total conversion mod, alternative history mod, where Carthage won the Punic Wars and they become the dominant force in the Mediterranean. And for the audience, in case they don't know, why did you choose this setting? I think I talk about that in the video a little bit, but just refresh everybody's memory, I guess.
So the reason I picked it is I think a lot of, because it is quite a stereotypical old history in terms of it's a very popular sort of thing, like what if Carthage won?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want to do it so much for I want to have a big Carthage empire or something. For me it was the idea of looking at the world of in the way of what happens if you don't have that pervasive Romanization across Europe.
And yeah, that's a huge question.
What sort of cultures might survive, and how would some of those older cultures interact with some of the newer arrivals? So we get to have things like a hybrid culture of Punics and Goths, for instance. And into the Balkans area, we've got some like what if sort of we've got a culture which is basically a hybrid of the Ostrogoths and the Getae, who are sort of a tribe, I guess, related to the Dacians or perhaps identical to them. And so it's, I think I've really enjoyed looking at the different ways these might interact, and also in terms of religions as well. How sort of ancient faiths might adapt to the changing world. There's just a lot of opportunities for creativity.
Absolutely.
And that's what I've always enjoyed the history, but it's, for me, I've enjoyed the flexibility of getting to go, what's interesting, how could we approach this in a way that it just lets us be creative, have fun.
Yeah, no,
games.
absolutely. I
And
totally get what you're
hopefully
saying.
make an engaging mod.
Yeah, no, and I definitely think it will be. I've had people asking, the rumblings have begun. They're like, when Sons of the Lightning? I'm sure it happens on the Discord all the time. But before we get to all of those things that I want to talk about, this is your first major mod, right? That you've worked on, or have you worked on other teams before? And I actually know the answer to this. I'm
No.
lying for the audience.
Well, I've got a bit of a surprise for you. This is cool. Well, for Crusader Kings 3, it's not the first, but also I have done modding before Crusader Kings 3. I actually started, I believe it would have been about, goodness, it would have been close to 15 years ago.
Oh my
I started
God.
modding. Yeah, for Rise of Nations. Anyone's heard of
Wow,
that?
I do. I've played it.
Yeah, it was. I spent most of high school
Oh my goodness.
making mods. So I started off with a medieval one, sort of started that, and then got distracted and started one that was Hellenistic period, which is a period of history I've always been interested in,
Hmm.
and I spent a lot of time on that. You can still find it on, what's it called? I don't remember what I called it.
If you remember,
quick look.
I'll put a link to it in the description if you remember, and then we can have people check it out if they still play Rise of Nations 20 years later.
Look for a Hellenistic themed mod for Rise of Nations. You can tell it's been a while, but then around 2018, 2019, I started playing Crusader Kings 2, and just playing it maybe a bit too obsessively, but
As one does.
I was really enjoyed that, and I started looking at some of the different mods. So, for instance, you had was it Diadochi Kings, Lux and Victor. Yeah, I really enjoyed sort of seeing how they approach things, and I started doing a little bit of modding myself just in my spare time. So, like, for instance, my my profile picture on Discord is art is portrait art I made for Crusader Kings 2 for my own little project.
Oh, you made that?
Yeah. So yeah, I made a few in that sort of old Crusader Kings style, the 2D layers, and quite fun actually.
No, I think it looks great. I've actually been wondering because I was like, man, I wonder where he got that because it looks real nice, but
Yeah.
I can't change mine now.
Yeah,
I feel like I have a brand, so I'm envious.
We could make a Crusader Kings 2 style
Tomato. That would actually be really cool as
brand
like
tomato.
I don't even know, like an April Fool's thing. I'm just like, I'm a Crusader Kings 2 channel now, even though it'd be like 10 years too late.
Crusader Kings 1, surely?
Oh, true. I've never even played Crusader Kings 1. I don't know.
Neither.
I don't think anybody has. Has anybody played it?
It
Is it real? Does it exist?
Well, every couple months we have a conversation in our Discord, Sons of the Lightning, sort of thinking, should we just make this a mod for another game, like sort of Sons of the Lightning but for Stellaris, or
Oh my
the
God.
latest one is how about I just scrap this and make it Sons of the Lightning but for Crusader Kings 1? I'm sure that would be.
I would go off. I mean, if you made a new mod for it, I bet you people would play it. They would probably be motivated to try it. You would unfortunately have to play Crusader Kings 1, which I've not heard great things about. I've heard it was fine, and that 2 was a huge improvement.
I've heard that, yeah, functionality wise, it's
like
I can't knock it till I've tried it, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I have no idea, but I'm assuming it's like the Arena to Daggerfall jump, or like Warcraft 1 to Warcraft 2, where nobody actually plays the first one. They always play the second one first, if they're going to, because there's no reason to. But you also worked on Apotheosis as well, correct?
Yes,
this is my spoiler. I knew this.
Yeah. So once basically as soon as Crusader Kings 3 came out, well, actually, even before it came out, I was sort of coming up with ideas, thinking of like, I was looking at the dev diaries to try and get an idea of the art style and almost trying to prepare what I was going to take. And then when it's so a few days after the game came out, I saw Rickonator, who was the lead developer of Crusader Kings 2 Daidoki Kings mod. He was working on a project. It was also in the Hellenistic period. So we quickly started talking, and it came up with Apotheosis.
Mm-hmm.
And so, unfortunately, the mod's now it's in hibernation.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I'm not part of the project anymore, but there are still some people who are trying to get it back up to speed. But it's difficult though when you get big DLC updates come through and break the entire mod.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, definitely. Because I remember it was huge. Like in probably the first year of CK3, it was like one of the biggest mods, and then it sort of just disappeared like off the face of the earth.
Yeah. I think it's a challenge with total conversion mods that change the map, because it just adds a whole other layer of complexity in the sense of you've got to map out the provinces, you've got to do the terrain, and part of the problem I personally had, like, 'cause I wasn't involved in the mapping side, but I did have lots of ideas for how the provinces could look, and I could get very much into a rabbit hole of historical accuracy and sort of the borders should look like this sort of thing, and it just it's a bit too easy to for me. I very much can get caught in the details, and that's, I guess, part of the reason why I actually decided to transition to alternate history, because when with something like Apotheosis, I'd be trying to make a decision between two things, and to figure out what the right approach was, I would go into a massive deep dive into sources and things like that, and it might be over something very tiny of like what name should we give to this barony?
Oh no!
In the middle of nowhere, the thing. With Sons of Lightning, I can still do deep dives, but it's very much, if I'm struggling to make a decision, I can just go, okay, what's more fun? What's funny?
Right, yeah. And I think that second aspect in particular is something that we're going to talk about at least a little bit as we progress, because I want to shift gears a little bit here. So I know this because I've made a video on it and I read comments. I read everybody's comments. So if you give me a hate comment, I will talk back to you most of the time because I don't like it. It's hurtful. Don't be mean on the internet just because you can. Anyway, so there's a lot of vocal criticisms about the mod. What would because people who are fans of Roman history in particular are going to inevitably have beef with somebody who's saying that now Carthage is, Rome sucks, Carthage wins, screw yourself. And there's a lot of people that have a lot to say about like the rise of Christianity or the rise of Islam, like still being in the mod.
That's the big one, yeah.
So how do you, as a mod creator, and this is great, I think, for anybody who wants to get into modding, how do you handle this criticism, not only probably from people on the outside, but even within your own Discord?
That's a really good question, and it's one that I think been learning a lot about as well over the past year. So I think one of the things I learned when your video came out is I saw some comments especially about sort of the Christianity, so the approach to religion, and I was spending a lot of time sort of coming up with big replies and things. And I sort of realized there's a point where I can't convince people to like my project or to be on board with my approach. It's because everyone's going to have their own views on what alternate history should look like. And And it's just a fact of life that my project isn't gonna be for everyone. There will be people who are disappointed that there's Christianity, whereas there's at the same time there's plenty of people who I think are interested in opportunities that can bring in the sense of lore building.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the best thing I can do is be confident in my reasoning and my decisions.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And so at the very least, if someone does ask, I can give my reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
I don't. Yeah, there's no point in me trying to convince people to think a certain way, because at the end of the day, it's a lot of this is subjective. A lot of this is about our own interests,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, because for me, especially the matter of having Christianity and Islam, I felt that it gave the world a bit more familiarity.
No,
Just to have
like a grounding.
have some constants in the world, yeah. But there's also people who, there's people who would, I'm sure, who would have preferred something where we made things a bit less recognizable. And that's fine. And maybe there'll be another mod that does sort of cater more to that approach.
So in conclusion, you're saying cry about it. No, I'm just kidding. But basic
for the Rome one, yes, the answer. Sorry, for the why Rome Week, the answer is cry,
please. No, and I understand. I definitely get why people, or maybe they're upset because they want there to be more alteration. But I also understand the perspective that you want to give people something that they're familiar with, and I see this a lot with other mods, where if you create a world, especially it's a little easier with an alternative history mod because it still has some basis in reality. But with making your own world, you have to now introduce all this lore to people. And for a lot of people, that's a barrier of entry that they will not cross unless somebody crosses it for them, which is a niche that I happen to fill a lot of the time. So
exactly. And
so you don't have to do that. You can just be like, okay, well, instead of the Battle of Tours happening in Spain, it now happens in, where is it, like Egypt?
Yeah, we've got sort of equivalent there in the Battle of Troa. It's basically
exactly
small fortress.
So you have things like that, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I've wondered about the Christianity thing too. I think maybe, I don't know, it could have been tweaked, but it's not my mod, and I will stand by your choice to put it in the mod, because I think that it creates some fun gameplay, like the Prince Bishops, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. A lot of the content created is not really by, so it was a 100% intentional thing, but but just the way the lore went, realized the opportunities there for some new content. It's not like, I think that's the important thing. Whilst we do have sort of A-rank religions, I don't want them to be carbon copies.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's because we've got an opportunity, like with the cultures, there's some really interesting opportunities for syncretism, and sort of seeing how different cultures might have, what twists they might have sort of given to these religions if they had interacted with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. And plus, for people who don't know, there are a couple really cool features with and I think they're both Christian specific, with the Prince Bishops that I mentioned, who are they're sort of like dukes almost, that they exist outside of the scope of the kingdom that exist in Spain at the time, or it's not Spain.
Hispania though.
Yeah, Hispania.
Fun. They're basically dynastic Prince Bishops. So while Carthage has been falling apart and the barbarians are entering Spain, you've got these Punicized Iberian cities where they've lost. They're not receiving any sort of real support from Carthage, or even sort of the local sort of Punic, Iberian, the local authority in Spain, local governor in Spain. So they're taking matters into their own hands, and these prince bishops have basically become the guardians of their cities. And with that, they've been able to combine sort of temporal and theocratic authority.
Yeah.
And and managed to hold on to it.
Yeah, and it's
so there is the Pope's not too happy though.
And it is really cool. Yeah, I like them too. I also love the abbeys of Egypt that you're planning on putting in, because I think that those sound like a blast. Definitely a different way to play CK3 that I think people are kind of clamoring for, because we've all made the 1 millionth empire. We've seen people paint the map 100 times. Nobody cares. I get asked about it all the time. It is not interesting to me. But what is interesting is when people do something different, and that is definitely different. So you want to talk a little bit about how these abbeys work in Egypt, the hermetic like monks, or however they are?
Yeah, of course. So the way these work, so they're basically hermetic Christian monasteries, which have become powerful institutions in their own right. And I really wanted to add a twist onto the typical dynastic gameplay. And I think some of my... So I remember there was a Crusader Kings 2 mod. I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it might have been Brothers in Oath, maybe. There's one that had a monastic type government where the family was... Your dynasty was the monk, your abbots and their brothers and whatnot. So I quite like the idea and wanted to see if we could do something similar in Crusader Kings 3. So the idea is that as a leader, you're not... You've got a vow of celibacy, so your kid shouldn't be inheriting unless you've been sneaky.
Which, can you be sneaky? Are you allowed to be sneaky? Is that an option?
I think technically you could.
Oh.
Though the way, I haven't quite.
Because I was wondering if you had planned for that. Like if somebody's like, "Hey man, I want to."
It is. Well, I'm just trying to think about mechanically. Well, because the way the inheritance works with these monastic governments is you appoint a firstborn. This being sort of a court position where you put someone in that position and they become your adopted son or daughter. And they then become your heir. So I guess technically you could make a sort of, if there's a bastard child sitting around and
just around,
you could potentially make them your firstborn.
You're like, oh, this kid.
I haven't fully gone into that.
I found them. Isn't that crazy? They're my firstborn.
That's wild.
Oh man.
Yeah. So you. so technically, I believe it would be possible. So I think there's the way I've set things up, and what will continue to. It's not going to be fully finished on the first release, but the way I've made is that there's when the code generates monastic characters, there's several archetypes that can potentially spawn. So I've basically created a whole bunch of templates for different personalities that you might see in a monastery, whether that's... You've got scholars, you've got ascetics, you've got mysterious hermits, you've got strangers who've come from half the world away. And so all these... Because I want the monasteries to feel like quite vibrant places.
Yeah, absolutely.
And with it, the goal is that there'll be some really interesting characters.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm excited about.
Who you can make into your successors. So you don't have the benefit of, whereas with normal dynastic gameplay, you've got big families, and there's often you've got perks and things that associated with having a large family, and you're being able to land your dynasty on other thrones or whatnot. With monastic gameplay, you've got a small family. It's really you and your firstborn, and also if you do land your courtiers as vassals, they also get adopted into the house, into the dynasty, but form cadet branches for each sort of new monastery, new satellite monastery. And so the idea is you've got a smaller dynasty, but you can potentially have some quite powerful characters. So you might have a courtier turn up with 30-something learning.
Oh yeah, and that would be crazy.
And knows 7 languages, sort of thing. It should be fairly rare that you get that, but I like that. I really want to sort of convey that sense of these characters have their own stories before they arrive. So even in things like nicknames, I've made a bunch of new nicknames for the characters just to give hints at what they might have been up to. Whether that was fighting tournaments in a foreign land or burning down buildings.
Never what it's like the arsonist, and you're like, oh, I wonder what this guy was doing.
You can have Johann as the arsonist, as I believe one of the nicknames. So there's just little things like that. It's just I think it could be some nice flavor.
No, absolutely. Have you looked into? Have you been using anything as inspiration to inspire you, like any games or media? Because I have a couple that I can suggest if you want. My base.
Actually, please do. I've usually a lot of my inspiration just comes from history.
Okay. I was gonna say there's a lot of great examples that you can use as like the visual medium of either film or books or video games. It might help assist you in your creation. Look at this.
Yeah, if you've got some, I can.
I do. If you got a pen, all right. This is for everybody. Yeah, first off, I'm gonna go with Obsidian's Pentiment, which is a game that takes place within a monastery, pretty much predominantly. Okay. It's like a 2D RPG basically. It's not really 2D. It's like 2.5, and you play as a journeyman artist who has to investigate a murder that happens at a monastery. That's partly what the story is about, and it's very cool. And that is based heavily on a book, which there's also a film if you don't like reading. The book is called The Name of the Rose, which is about a monk and his apprentice going to a monastery in I can't remember where they're at. I think it's in like France or something. And they're investigating a series of murders, and that's like what the whole book is about, which is very good, and it has a big host of characters. So I was like, you should definitely look into one of those, especially the movie.
It just sounds like a good event chain right there.
Yeah, exactly. And you can even reference this in there if you wanted to. Or there's like, Canticle for Leibowitz, which is about a future where only monks have like access to information. Yep, which is great. It's fantastic. It's Fallout is based on that. So that's a couple. I won't give you too many. I want to overwhelm you. You don't need to go into research mode.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
But,
that's.
Oh wait, I got one more. One more.
I got one more. Yeah, one more.
One more. It's an animated film. It's called The Secret of Kells. It's about a boy who's learning to be an illuminator of manuscripts, and it just has a nice host of different monks living in one place. They're from like different places, so you get like that visualization of like what they might look like different characteristics they have about their like mannerisms. So something else to look into. That's it. I'm done. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take over the interview for a minute, but I figured it could be helpful.
No, thank you. That's because I've always imagined monasteries as a diverse place, right? Because you've got, especially when you add to it the lore of the mod, where these are sort of in the oases of Egypt.
Yeah.
And so I guess sort of similar to the first Coptic monasteries. But the difference in Sons of the Lightning is you've had Egyptian paganism survive for a lot longer. And so you've got more, and also Hermeticism, Greek philosophical ideas. You've got those sort of having their influence, and so with the monasteries, it won't be in the first release, but I do want to look into the sort of more mystical side of these, where there's links to older movements. So kind of, and so then I do have some ideas in the lore of basically sort of allegations of some monks being more interested in these mystical aspects and wanting to uncover the secrets of Egypt's deserts.
Yeah,
it sort of gets a little
Hmm.
sort of a little bit more into fantastical, I guess.
Like a light fantasy element. Like they're like, oh well, there's something in the sands, and you'd be like, oh, that's what's in the sands. Maybe you become corrupted by this subcult, and then they try to oust you as you know, the head of this monastery or something. I don't know.
Because there's that search for knowledge, and with that, and one thing is you might have some audience turning up to your monastery who they're looking for that, they're looking for knowledge, they're wanting to learn more about the past, they want to uncover the old temples, and some of them may have secret faiths as well. And that sort of goes back to the people arriving at your court having pasts, having sort of fleshed out characters, and having secrets.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's important.
And you have stressed a couple times that this won't probably be completely fleshed out, or maybe not even in the initial release. What do you expect to be in the initial release? And also, if you have a timeline, when do you think that may be? Because, you know, it's been a couple months since we did that video, and we're clamoring, we're waiting.
It does start getting a job. It does.
It definitely does.
So first release. So originally the scope was just going to be Iberia and North Africa, with the rest of the map just being the same as vanilla. But I have changed that approach. I believe when your video came out, that was still the approach. But now what I've done is got sort of a placeholder set up for at least most of Europe, and we've got sort of Balkans, Anatolia. Still haven't quite got to the Levant sort of Middle East region yet. So those might still be quite similar to vanilla. But we are developing lore, coming up with ideas for how those regions might look.
Right.
So Iberia, North Africa will be fleshed out. The rest of Europe, Anatolia will have placeholder religions, characters, cultures. So some of them are actually in pretty good state. I mean, for instance, thanks to Inzan's work, the Slavic religion sort of to Joe setup has been fleshed out already quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of they've renamed a lot of the titles in sort of the Moravia region. There's this basically a empire of Slovenia in that sort of stretching from basically going from up north, sort of Sorbia, Palabia, down to Adriatic.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got that's in the first. That'll be in the first release.
Okay. And so, have you thought for the places that aren't done? Have you? This is just purely from my own perspective, but would it not be easier to just cut the map off then and just have like a fog of war sort of thing going on, where you don't have to worry about them? You don't even have to put a placeholder, because it could maybe detract or distract somebody who's like, oh, well, my favorite place is the Middle East, and I don't know that they didn't add anything because people don't read. And I know this from experience. So they might come and play the mod, and they'll be like, "This is exactly the same." So just as a way to avoid that, I don't know if it's something you've considered, but
yeah, I think it has been brought up. I think adjusting the map would actually be more trouble than it's worth.
Oh, I see.
Because just from a coding perspective of having to remove all the provinces, remove all the content, and then add it back in,
that makes sense. No, you're right. Yeah,
that's sort of getting into map editing territory, which I don't have experience with.
So, are you primarily coding?
Sort of coding, art, research. Yeah, the map. I haven't touched the. I only touched the map in sense of province setup, sort of county setup. In some cases, shifting baronies, that sort of thing. I won't. At least at this stage, I won't be doing things like adding entirely new provinces. Just in part because things like I just think it could add issues with compatibility down the line. I'm trying to keep things fairly simple. Just
no, for
keep
future updates,
easy to compatch. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But also, for the other question for release, I've said that I've said that we've been close for quite a while now. I think I was saying that we were close in July.
Yep.
we're still close. We're still close. I've got a to-do list now, which is it's got maybe 10 things left in it. It comes down to when I can find the time. But my hope, I really would like to get something out by the end of this year or very early next year. Maybe even by the time this video is out, it will.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean,
the release.
This is the last video of the year on almost the last day of the year. So if it comes out this year, it has probably already come out by the time we're talking about this. So most of this might be superfluous at that point, but that's a good thing because then you'll be playing, the mod, which is the key. And I assume for recommended places, you're gonna probably recommend like Hispania because it's got a bunch of stuff already.
Yes. Yep. So there's 3 bookmarks for the first release, all 867. We haven't gone to the later start dates yet, but I have started coming off ideas for them. So there's one bookmark which is Iberia, one bookmark which is the north, sort of northwest Africa, Carthage's remnants, and then there's Egypt. But I've also got some inspiration from. I saw how Goodherger had used the challenge character system, the challenge ruler thing that was introduced. I think it was Roads to Power. I saw how they did that, and so might give that a go. So I've actually also got some challenge characters to choose from, and at the stage there are 2 who are outside that area. So there's one currently in the Rhodopes mountains, sort of near Constantinople, that sort of area, sort of Thrace area, and there's also one guy in Asia Minor. So and I might add 1 or 2 more sort of from outside that core area. Just so there's a few more few more recommended starting areas potentially. A little bit more flavor.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I think 3 even just to start would be great. We don't know when soon is, but once you get it out, then you basically have an army of testers. Obviously, I'll make something for it, so you'll get however many people watch that. Which a lot of people watched the initial video a lot more than I would have expected.
That was. I mean, thank you so much for that. That
wasn't why I brought it up. I was only just meaning because you have all these eyes, you got all these people waiting. It's you gotta get it out.
Yes, exactly.
I think we can get too in the weeds with wanting things to be perfect when we should just make them good and then hope for the best.
Exactly. I'm definitely not the best when it comes to just going, okay, that's good enough. I can be a bit of a perfectionist, and I'm well aware of that. And so, and it does mean I might get caught up in little details that people won't actually notice.
Right. So
sometimes I enjoy it. Sometimes, like a lot of the time, it is fun. Doing things like delving into name lists and sort of coming up with variants of sort of Punic Carthaginian names in different languages. Sort of little flavor things people might notice, but maybe not. I enjoy doing things like that.
Yeah. So do you think from a modding perspective, the team, well, because I guess you didn't really clarify, so it is you doing most of the coding and stuff, but it's the
Yes,
community
yeah,
collaborates with you. So do you think it
yeah.
would be better potentially if you started bringing people onto the team to take over certain aspects of it? Because like as you say, you know, you get easily distracted and you might go down a rabbit hole for like a week or two, but if you had other people on the team working on the mod too, you could potentially, you know, still be getting other things done while you're like, no, I have to find out the name of this river valley today. And you know, you get lost in the sauce.
You
And
know me.
then
You know me too well now.
yeah, exactly. Now we've got you clocked. So
Yeah.
I just don't know if you've been
It's-
considering it, because I've been bringing it up in every
Yeah.
interview. Like if you're looking for more team members, you know,
Yeah.
people are willing.
Yeah, so I think the first thing I'd say is we're always looking for people who need to just contribute ideas, contribute lore.
Hmm.
We have some really great discussions in the Discord where you sort of got paragraphs long to conversations about sometimes quite specific things, and it can lead to some really awesome ideas emerging. So, for instance, we do actually have some ideas for Rome and how we can make Rome an interesting place to play. Because I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are still going to boot up this mod and play Rome because we've got to avenge the, you know, we've got to avenge sort of.
Oh yeah, no,
make
absolutely.
the empire.
I have seen people saying that.
Yeah. So what we're looking at having is, and so there was a couple of community members who came up with some really neat ideas of sort of Rome being this sort of militaristic, but also a little bit punicized sort of culture that's spent a lot of its time sort of doing mercenary service abroad. Kind of, I guess some Norman parallels, some Sparta parallels, but they've actually picked up Mithraism, to Mithraic cults that originally traveled around the Roman Empire by legionaries. In the mod, they get imported by Roman mercenaries who've served in the East, and there's been some really neat ideas of how these cults interact with sort of Roman social issues, where you've got sort of two main branches. One is sort of one's quite populistic, a bit more militaristic, sort of tied to those mercenaries. One is sort of more esoteric, aristocratic, almost secretive sort of branch. So we've got so that's an example of where a couple of community members have come up with some really interesting ideas that will make their way into the mod. So there's opportunities for people to with a bit of conversation, with some good cooking. Yeah, that can be really helpful.
Yeah.
Especially there's areas where I just don't know very much about. So, for instance, I'm not very knowledgeable about the Germanic tribes too much, or sort of Germany. I don't know much about sort of Middle East, India. So the more people sort of able to come up with ideas, the easier it can be for me to just so I've got the ideas in front of me, and then I can implement them. In terms of the actual modding side of things, I think it's the sort of thing where if someone has got a good sense of what we're trying to do with the mod, sort of its direction, its aims, and is and is what's the word? I guess has a lot of initiative. Definitely, I think for me though, I'm not great as a manager, and that's not why I mod. I mod because I like doing sort of getting into those details, and so I'm not the sort of person who. Because I know some modders in this community are great sort of at leading teams.
Yeah.
Giving directions, giving mentorship. For me, I know that that's not my strength, particularly because a lot of these things I'm figuring out as I go.
Right.
I'm not the best coder or anything. So yeah, it's the sort of thing where I guess I'm being fairly conservative when it comes to building up a team. If it's really, I guess the community is the team. If you want to be cheesy about it.
The mod was the friends we made.
Because yeah, well, the contributions
the
community members have been just invaluable because it's one of those one of the things I've enjoyed the most making the mod is when you're having a conversation in the Discord and people are riffing off each other, and you just end up with something which is potentially quite outrageous, but it's when you actually look into it, it's grounded in sort of there's historical parallels, there's details, and it actually kind of like some of the Rome ideas. They seem a bit wacky at first glance, but I think we can quite reasonably justify them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So moving,
even if you don't necessarily agree with that.
No, I mean, I think it's fine. It's, again, like I said prior, it's your mod. I merely offer suggestions to different people.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. And that's the thing. I always do welcome suggestions, like, and because that's the thing. Even if you don't, even if you come into the community and you don't agree with our approach to things, it doesn't mean that someone's ideas are not worth something, right? Like,
right, yeah, exactly.
I think, for instance, we've had people who've talked about sort of not being happy with the direction with Christianity, for instance, and I think, and some of those conversations have actually been quite helpful and getting us to sort of think about how can we make sure that Christianity isn't a carbon copy of vanilla. So what are some of the ways we can make it a bit more interesting and maybe look more into syncretic faiths, maybe looking at different dynamics. Sort of, for instance, how might Christianity look in a mercantile society? If that's if it began in a mercantile empire as opposed to sort of Rome's empire, how would things look?
No, absolutely. So just to shift gears here, because we've been chatting for a while now already. I don't want to keep you for forever, and I have a couple more questions I wanted to ask. So once the mod is released,
no worries, all good.
Do you have a sort of timeline planned of like what you would like to work on, like in order after that, like after you're done with the first release? Like we're on whatever you're gonna call it, 1.0, whatever. I don't 0.5, whatever it is.
0.1. I need to learn versioning. I don't.
Yeah, I don't know how it works. It seems like nothing is ever 1.0. Yeah. Nothing's ever actually released. It's just always in beta forever. Yeah. But what is your plan after?
Check it. So I think my first plan will be to expand the map for 867. So get the Middle East done, get India done, and start replacing some of those placeholders in Europe with start finalizing some of that lore. Getting to the point where that map for 867 is fairly final, and then and while I'm doing that, sort of start fleshing out some of those regions as well. There are a couple of decisions that been wanting to add, which I won't. Yeah, haven't really had time for the first release, but look to do later sort of thing. Yeah, things for instance like having a bit more of a tailored. There's all these Roman Empire decisions in vanilla. I don't just want to copy paste those because I don't think that makes sense for the timeline. So it's looking at how could we, because yeah, for the inevitable Rome run, how can
Right.
we make it interesting and give how can we give our own spin on it? And we have had some ideas for that. So that's it's things like that. So fleshing out regions. Always love my sort of restore empires or found empire decisions.
Right.
Giving players things to work towards.
Yeah, giving them
And
a
then,
goal.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think from there, a bit more of a longer term thing. But moving to other start dates, I really would like to do 1066. I would like to do 1178, and just sort of show how much the world's going to change compared to vanilla, especially by those start dates.
Right. No, absolutely. I think that's a good goal.
We've got some interesting ideas for how different things will end up. So I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think once you're done and you've got the beginning ironed out, it'll be cool to see what you do to change between the time periods. And there's something I wanted to ask you that we get a unique perspective here. Before I let you go, this will be my last question. Well, it's a two-parter though. So first of all,
Okay.
this is your first like major mod that you're like, are you working on by yourself? I think, correct? Like first massive total conversion mod, correct? That's a small part.
Yeah, I mean,
this is a qualifier for my actual question.
The Rise of Nations one was kind of a solo, but
okay. Well, besides the Rise of Nations,
but I mean for for Crusader Kings, it's one where I've sort of been, I guess, the sole lead.
Okay. And so as the sole lead, is there anything, one, that you have learned that you would like to share with the listeners? And two, what sort of advice would you give to somebody who's maybe in your position, maybe they are experienced at modding, but they've never tackled a big project? I mean, you've sort of just gone for it. You're like you threw yourself in the lake and now you're learning how to swim. So what is your advice to people in both those contexts, I guess? Or like, what did you learn? And then what is your advice for somebody who wants to do the same?
Yeah, so I've learned a lot. I guess from especially doing a solo thing, I think what I've learned is I guess know your strengths and and I mean for me, I know there's some things which I'm not great at. I'm not great at particularly complicated coding. I'm not great with mapping. And there's a decision to be made there, right? So you could go, right, okay, I'm going to learn to do those things, which that can take a lot of time, energy. In my case, I decided, okay, I'm going to accept that there's some things I'm not so great with. So I'm going to focus on the things I do know how to do, focus on things I think importantly that I enjoy doing. At the end of the day, we're not doing this for money or anything. It's I mod because I enjoy it. It's a fun hobby. It's interesting. I learn a lot, and for me, I want to make sure that I keep enjoying it. Because as soon as if I'm forcing myself just to do things I'm not interested in, then it's not really good for anyone. Because on one hand, it means that I stop enjoying modding, but also it means that the mod stops happening, I guess. So it's kind of that learning where to sometimes where it can be worth compromising, but knowing your limits and and sort of I guess sticking to the core of why you're as a modder, and people I guess have different reasons why they're modding. For some people, it's the community. I think for me, it's a lot of it is it's mod community, as in all, my mods Discord and sort of throwing around ideas and things like that. And it's so I guess I think that's one of the things I've learnt. Actually, doing it on my own is knowing my strengths.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I guess for someone who's it's if you're looking to embark on a big project, I mean it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I've spent who knows how many hours, but also I know that I haven't spent them particularly, hugely efficiently.
Right.
Um,
And I guess it's just like, how do you
it's
balance, like
yeah,
spending time
it's how do
efficiently?
you it's how you balance things. But that's the thing. I think that's one of the things I accepted. I think in my case, there's more likelihood of the mod getting completed if I let myself do things my way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does mean there may be some shortcomings, and that's yes, it's sort of something I've accepted. Sorry, I've got got
No,
a
no,
bit
you're
off.
you're totally fine. I think
I think
I think your first advice is great, especially like know your limits, know your scope.
yeah,
That's advice we
exactly.
hear
Know
a
your
lot.
limits. Yeah, and give things a go. I think it's if, there's no harm in trying things out and experimenting. If you've got an idea, like I think be careful with. It can be good to be careful with yes how you communicate things. Like there's so many times that I as a modder have made big promises and just not delivered on them because I haven't been realistic.
Right.
And
And I've done that too as a YouTuber. Like you think
yeah,
that you can handle something, and
yeah,
then you're like, oh, I don't have time to do
exactly.
this.
Yeah, and I found a lot of the time when I sort of look back at those situations, and the common thread is that I've done it when I've wanted to, or I've wanted maybe to I wanted to be able to do something, I guess,
Hmm.
but I haven't been realistic with. Okay, do I actually enjoy? Do I enjoy the steps towards that? Do I have the time to do
Mm-hmm.
that? Um, it's very easy to sort of be sort of be caught up in that vision of what the final thing is, what you're delivering, and in the process, kind of lose track of what you're doing in the moment. I guess it's
Yeah.
sort
No.
of hard to articulate.
No, that's totally fine. I think that articulates it pretty well, honestly. It's like keep your focus, know your limits. Don't be afraid to go outside of it, but I guess don't be surprised if it doesn't go your way.
Yeah.
To summarize, I guess what I
That's a
got
good
from you.
I think that's a good summary. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
honestly, have fun. Just
Whoa.
if you try
Okay.
if you want it's groundbreaking. I mean, or not if you don't want to, but
Yeah, if you want to be
I think
serious.
that's but that's the thing. I do this because I enjoy it, and if I know that if I stop enjoying it, that's when the project kind of falls apart.
Yeah,
So
that is what happens.
it's and so I mean, but still, it can be good to challenge yourself. Like one of the things I enjoy sometimes is especially with new mechanics, being like, okay, can I get this thing working? Give it a go, and then sometimes it's just like, okay, no, there's actually the game does not let you do that. So for instance, you can't actually adopt someone, or someone let me know if there is a way, but as far as I can tell, you can't adopt someone as your child if they're older than you.
Oh. Like
Yeah.
the game won't let you.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe the game gets around it in the adventure mechanics. If you adopt someone as your heir that's older than you, they just become part of your house. They're not related to you in any way. But yeah, for the monastic mechanics, I actually made it a rule that your heir needs to be younger than you, because I like being able to sort of you can open the dynasty tree and see that continuity. But it's I think there's been things where I've given things a go and it's actually worked out really well. And it's kind of, I think that's one of the ways that new discoveries are made with modding as well. It's just messing around with things. Yeah, it might crash, but you might also get something amazing.
Yeah, you'll get there in the end. And with that, I want to thank you for your time. We chatted for an hour, and I think we got a lot of insight. Hopefully, by the time this comes out, the mod will also be out, and we'll be all playing it.
Hopefully, I'll try and make that a little target.
Yeah, maybe they'll be
if the mod isn't out by when this video comes out, I apologize, viewers.
It'll be ready soon. It's almost ready still.
Yeah, soon TM.
Soon TM. And with that, thank you very much, Super, and I will happily talk to you in the future. What's up, everybody? It's Saul, and today I am here with the main lead of Elder Kings 2, and this is AJ. How are you doing today, AJ?
Hello. So quick correction. We don't really have a main lead, and that's kind of one of the cool things about Elder Kings as a team, actually, that we should definitely talk about.
Yeah, please, definitely.
Go. Yeah, hello. I'm AJ. I'm doing great. I'm mainly work in art and the art direction, and I do a lot of I've designed the aging system. I've done a bunch of stuff on random features in terms of design, a little bit of coding.
Okay.
And I've been around on the team for a really long time. I think I'm the second oldest active dev alongside Thane.
Oh my god.
So yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to definitely talk about how the team is broken up, because now I'm curious. But before we start, I like to ask everybody a simple, soft question. So, Tamriel, it's a big place. It's a culmination of 30 years of lore. Do you have a favorite game or area or race that you gravitate towards when you play these games?
Ooh, okay. I think usually it's Nords or High Elves. Which are also the most horrible, probably, in a lot of ways. But I think that's part of why I find them interesting. I find them interesting as kind of satirical characters a lot of the time.
No, that's true. Yeah, especially the High Elves. They're almost cartoonishly evil half the time.
Yeah, and even Nords outside of Skyrim, right? And in Skyrim, you even get some of those characters, but very over the top, hyper masculine to the point of absurdity.
Yeah.
And it's really fun. I love it. I don't
know. So, which is great. And I anybody who watches the channel, I'll just give you mine, just in case you don't know. My favorite are the orcs. I've always been a big fan of the Orsimer. I've played orcs in every game I've ever played. World of Warcraft, my first main was an orc warlock. So I love orcs. I know that people think they're just, the turd elves, which is true. That is not, you're not wrong. I just like the idea of this because they sort of have this interesting steppe culture mixed with always trying to find a homeland that keeps getting destroyed for various reasons. I think it's just fun.
Yeah, they're the main underdog, right? And it's always quite compelling because they're also very skilled, and the orcs can really prove themselves, and it's kind of it always feels unfair that they're being treated the way they are, right? So it's a very easy kind of race to identify with, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so you're you get to sort of embody that chip on your shoulder, but while also being in many respects some of the most capable warriors in all of Tamriel,
exactly.
which is great. So
I always find it a shame though that they never they always talk about how great orcish smithing is.
Yeah.
And all their gear looks really scrappy and
what the hell?
fucked up.
I feel like I wonder if that is like a byproduct of these orcs having like lived outside of their province or like their territory. So like if you were
Yeah,
to go to where their source is, it's like really fine, but these people don't know how to
maybe,
do it
yeah.
anymore. I don't know.
Maybe because the Skyrim orcs are so isolated.
Yeah.
But even in Skyrim, they like try to imply that orc stuff is really good, and the orc armor is like one of the highest rated in the game, right?
That's true. Maybe the art design just doesn't give it any service.
Yeah.
Because you're right, it
I
does look
think
like they just sort of slap it together.
I think Oblivion has some of my least favorite art design in the series, but I think they got orc armor better than Skyrim did.
Oh yeah, I like the way it looks in
Without any
Morrowind too.
shortcuts.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's very cool in Morrowind. It's a lot more Japanese inspired.
yeah. It has that sort of like Shogunate look, which
Yeah.
we are going to talk a little bit about Shogunate, and there's a reason that I said that. But before we do that, I really want to know, how is the team broken up for Elder Kings? Like you said, there's no main lead, so how many people are on
Yeah.
the team, and then how is that divided up?
Okay, so I think the team's quite large. I think we probably have about 50 people with the developer role.
Wow.
But I don't think I've ever seen anywhere close to that number active at any time.
Okay.
It's kind of I would say, a rotating door of developers.
Mm.
Um, and with a recurring cast, right, that like keeps coming back. It just keeps sort of circling, and there's a few devs that show up more often than others.
Hmm.
Um, everybody has gone on hiatus at some point, and we think that that's healthy, right? Like we kind of encourage that.
Yeah, of course.
Actually, really encourage like breaks and longer breaks as well. Um,
So.
and I think it's been working really great for us. It doesn't mean the development is quite slow, right?
Mhm.
That is a byproduct, but we don't really care, honestly, because it's a hobby. Like I know fans obviously really want um, updates to be regular, and
Mhm.
it sucks to have to downgrade the game to play, and it sucks for us as well. Um, but at the end of the day, we want the devs to be happy and having a good time,
Mhm.
and don't want anyone burnt out. And that is a problem we've seen in a lot of other mod projects in the Crusader Kings free community. Um, so, and with the exception of like really passionate people with a lot of free time who just love doing this shit all the time nonstop,
Mhm.
which there are also a lot of. But no, so our team is the baseline role on Discord is developer. Once you're a developer, you have access to all of the dev channels except the admin channel.
Mm.
And there is a server team channel where we do team-related discussion. For example, if someone is applying to become a dev, that's where that gets brought up, and every dev gets to take part in that discussion.
Mm.
Um, then we have senior developers, which is more of a vanity role. It just gets given to people who have been on a team for a long time, um, and have worked on a mod consistently. Um, then there is project lead, which is hard to get. There aren't very many project leads.
Mhm.
I think there are maybe around 4, I would say, semi-active at the moment.
Okay.
Um, so kind of jumping in and out.
Is that what
Um,
your position is? Like, are you like the art project
yes,
lead?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm an art project lead. Project leads aren't really specific to departments. We don't really
Oh.
do departments that much either.
Okay.
So I take part in everything. Um,
And so
but
with
art is the main stuff I work on, like hands-on.
Okay. And so with this sort of like looser breakdown of how like roles are with just a general developer and then senior developer and then like, not specific leads, how do updates get decided? Like, is it just because
Mhm.
you said that people, they sort of just work when they want to. So is it sort of like a bunch of people are working on this thing, so therefore that's the next update? Like, how does that
We
work?
kind of have sprints, I would say. So we decide on a goal together in discussion. Excitement kind of builds, and we kind of push through. And there are some periods where there is just specific work that needs doing, and whoever is able to do that work and has time to do that work just kind of gets stuck in and does it. That's usually how Compatch goes. There's just a few devs that are just on it for weeks and months, just consistently, every day.
Mm.
Uh, and the people who are usually making content or aren't able to help with Compatch don't do anything, or just keep making content. Alternatively, that
Mm.
also tends to be the case. That's why even with Compatch, we always release content. It's not necessarily because like development is like developers aren't compatching and are making content. Instead, those developers who are making content wouldn't be compatching anyway, or the stuff they would be compatching has already been compatched because they've already done it, right? So, and then the other stuff is code that is not their specialty, that they have never worked on.
Okay.
So it kind of like it is just a byproduct of we have 5 to 10 active devs at a time just working on the stuff they're working, and compatch is one,
Okay.
boring, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
hard, and two, it just takes a long time. It is just one of those things.
So
We've gotten better at it with time. I mean, currently the mod is almost compatched completely.
that's what I was going to ask. I was going to say, when do you suspect the next update, or I guess compatch in general, would be? Which apparently sounds like it's soon.
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely early next year, but I'm hesitant to put a date on because like
Right.
again, I don't know what will happen, right? Like sometimes devs just go on hiatus, and that's okay. We
Mhm.
don't want to we don't pressure anyone on the team to work. And again, that doesn't mean we work slower, right? It is undeniable that if you pressure developers to work, they'll work more. But we just don't want that kind of environment.
So
That's
it's a lot more
bottom line on it.
relaxed, is what I'm hearing,
Yeah.
which is probably better, I guess, for input. Do you have any idea, or is there any like whisperings? You don't have to share this if you don't want to. I'm just going to ask anyway. But do you have like a general idea of what the next major update would be? Like besides just compatching, are you guys like eyeing anything right now?
I can talk about a few general interest areas,
Okay.
I
Yeah, go for
guess.
that.
So we've obviously been planning the Morrowind update for a while. We've been meaning to release it earlier, but kind of comp patches have been kicking us in the ass every time. And then every time there's a big update, there's a bunch of ideas related to the newest feature, and people want to work on that instead. And we make some really cool stuff, and then we start working on Morrowind, and then there's another update. So it's kind of been a pain in the ass to even have directed updates in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, Morrowind work has been progressing, and at some point, the main feature, which is the Great House system, is going to be released, and that's probably going to be flavored as the Morrowind update. So in terms of these updates, like a lot of the time they're themed, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is mostly just a post-mortem type thing, right? We look back on the work that's been done, and we're like, okay, there's been a lot of work on Argonians. Let's theme it around Black Marsh. But in reality, it's just whatever work people have been working on.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a directed effort usually. With Morrowind, we've been trying to make it a more directed effort, and to be completely transparent, it's not been hugely successful so far.
Mm.
There
What's a
has
big
been a lot of
project?
work on Morrowind, but it's a big goal, and it's
Yeah.
like it always when we have a goal like that, it's always like, have we reached this goal yet? And you have to assess that, and you never feel like you've quite reached it. But and I think in the case of Morrowind, it is really ultimately about one central feature, and that's the Great House system.
Yeah, and there's so many. You have all of them, so you're having to tackle. It's not like the game where you're only dealing with the Redoran, Telvanni, and then.
Yeah, but I can talk a little bit about the features of a Great House system.
Oh yeah, go for it if you want to.
I would say I can outline that. We've talked about it in Discord before, so I can talk about it here. So the basic idea is you have various Great House heads, and those are tied to the titular Great House titles that we've already got in the mod.
Okay.
And those are represented in a new UI for the Great Houses, which will appear on the right side of the screen.
Okay. Oh, like
And
okay, yeah,
in
yeah.
that, you can see every Great House head, and so every Great House is represented. And you also see the temple represented, and the Alma ruler, who's the head of the temple. And all of these have votes, and you can vote on various issues. And these are there's a kind of dynamic system there that I'm not going to get into because that sort of stuff hasn't been shown off yet.
Right.
So I'm just going to keep it under wraps, just so developers who are working on it don't get disappointed
Right.
or something.
Yeah,
Don't
no
want
no
information.
pressure on your part. I think it's I'm honestly I'm thrilled because I actually had it in my notes. I was like, when Great Houses? Because I remember hearing rumors about that feature, and Morrowind is my favorite Elder Scrolls game. So naturally I'm like, oh yeah, I want to see some Great
And
House
something
stuff.
I've personally worked on, we're gonna have Vivek and represented in the mod, which
Oh
would
my
be really
god, really?
and hopefully Almalexia,
Yeah.
if I have time to make clothes.
Oh.
An outfit.
So are you do you do modeling as well then?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And then so I know that you guys have
But
helped out.
most of the 3D art in the mod is made by me, actually.
Oh, okay. So were you the one who was assisting with, I think Anbanar had you guys helping them?
There was a little bit of a confusion with Anbana, actually. This does veer a little bit into drama. I think it's
Oh,
mostly resolved now.
okay.
Um, I,
You don't
so okay. So basically, someone on our team told Anbana that they could use models I made without ever asking in the team channels
Oh, okay.
and without ever asking me. In Anbana, they used the models and they made a teaser showing it off without ever asking me. And
Ah.
that was that. I talked to them. Initially, I asked them to get rid of the models, but I talked to them and I realized that they didn't, there wasn't any bad intentions behind it. And so I told them they could have the models, but I think at the moment they've removed them anyway. Because I think, I don't know, maybe there's some miscommunication in the team as well, I think, in terms of like who was supposed to get the permission and stuff like that.
I see. Yeah, because I
But
don't know. I've not messed with that mod since I
yeah.
made that video on
But
it forever ago.
it looks like a really cool mod, by the way, and I've heard, and there's people on our team that really liked the I think there was it an EU or a
Oh
Crusader
yeah,
Kings 2 mod
it's
as
an
well?
EU4 mod. It's like the largest one
Yeah.
for that game.
Yeah, so I heard that stuff is awesome. I heard the team is awesome. When I talked to the team about it, they were awesome as well. They were really nice. So yeah, but I've helped with a bunch of mods. I've worked on Fallen Eagle, which was actually commissioned.
Okay.
Um, I made the Sasanian armor for them.
Oh, interesting.
I did some stuff for Celdicus, if you know who Celdicus is.
I think so. Yeah.
Um,
And then
yeah,
obviously you're on Shogunate, which I was curious
and
about
on that.
that because I have an interview with Fun, but Fun apparently doesn't speak English very well. People already know this because you're later on in the video, but I had to read their responses because I think they speak Japanese. But you're one
Mhm.
of the English devs, so what do you do on that mod?
Right. So to be completely honest, I haven't been super active on Shogunate
Okay.
recently. But I have mostly just worked on 3D art. I saw Shogun. I first heard of Shogunate actually when Royal Courts came out, right? And um, I saw a showcase where Fun had made like a placeholder Japanese court,
Mm,
and I thought it was really cool, but I thought it was also kind of sad because it was just vanilla assets like composed in a kind of a clever way, but
right.
it was very obviously not Japanese. Um, and I wanted to make a court and I wanted to make clothes for them, and that's what I did.
Okay.
Uh, and I'm still kind of working on more. I've just postponed it because I have more important work IRL right now.
Right. No, understandable. And then plus with obviously the Elder King seems to be your main thing. So you said you've been on this team for almost the second longest. Were you involved with the original Elder Kings team at all?
No. So a lot of the original The Kings One devs are not active anymore, or if they're active, they're more just active on the server and on the kind of administrative side, but not really in development.
I see. I see. And so
Um,
when did you come on to the Elder Kings team?
I came on before Elder Kings 2 was released, quite a while before it was released. Um, I don't know. It's hard to put a date on it. But I think I've been on a team for maybe 5 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say it would have to be because Elder Kings was one of the first that I can remember. I think you guys came out in 2021, so it's been yeah, Elder Kings 2, I should say. I think it came out.
Yeah, so I think around 5 years, maybe a little more,
Wow.
which is crazy to think about actually.
Yeah. No,
See,
absolutely.
in my head, and it's really weird to think about because in my head, like when I joined the team, there was already a big team and a lot of work done already, and um, and it felt like it was already around for a while at that time to me.
Hmm.
And and some more EK1 devs were active back then as well. And so I still kind of feel like a new dev at times. which is kind of funny because
Right.
now it's just like I'm one of the like 2 devs um pre-release that are still active,
Oh wow.
other than some like as a project lead anyway.
Right. Wow. And I mean, how does that feel to be like, still on this project? Like, because I think that is why I mistakenly, and maybe others too, like they view you as sort of like the head of this mod, even though you technically don't
Yeah,
have one.
I think generally people assume like Thane or me are
Yeah.
the head. Those are like the 2 people that people just kind of assume. Um, yeah. Well,
We,
what are you gonna say?
oh no, no, I was gonna shift gears once you were done, but I think you just answered pretty
Yeah, I mean, it's
succinctly.
just I just think it's like it's not really. I think it's just we're the most like outward facing
Hmm.
in a dev team, right? Like people see me on the co-op, people see me working on other mods, and I'm online a lot, so people see me at the top of the dev list a lot.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and a lot of other project leads aren't online anymore, or are just in the retired section or the inactive section,
Hmm.
so they don't show up in the Discord. Um, and Thane again, he takes part in a lot of mod co-op stuff with other developers and
Yeah.
other teams
And
as
I was
well.
going to
So
talk about that. So the co-op, obviously, it sounds like you help out with a lot of mods. So do you are how do I want to word this? So the co-op, for a lot of you, the people already know this if they've been listening to this. It's a great resource if you're a person interested in modding. Do you often like help out new modders? Like, have you helped people learn how to 3D model? Is that like something that you're able to
uh,
do, or is that like a? I don't know how the process is. I have no idea how difficult it is
o-
to teach somebody.
occasionally a little bit, right? It's hard to just like kind of teach someone how to 3D model without spending a lot of time with them, I
Hmm.
think. But I've given help in the GFX channels and I've asked for help in the GFX channels as well.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Of course. I mean, it takes it's interesting because I don't know how other games do it, but it seems like Crusader Kings is a very community oriented modding world. It's like quite
yeah,
interconnected.
it's very interconnected. I think it helps the size of it as well, right? It's large, but it's not like so large that it's unwieldy large. You can still kind of collect people in the same spaces,
Yeah.
and have Discord servers that aren't like almost unusable with how active they are. Um,
Yeah. Well, some of them are pretty big though. I mean, surprisingly, they're like small cities. I
yeah,
think y'all's there's like somewhere around 30,000 maybe, which is I
yeah,
mean,
ours
that's
is big, but you know, like with Discord servers, I think you always have a much bigger number of users compared to users who actually send messages, right?
oh, that's true. Yeah, I mean, my own Discord, I think there's like 20 people that actually use it out of the few hundred that are in there.
It always feels like there's like 3 dudes, right?
Yeah. You're like, there they are. Look at them go. So, this is a question that you might actually not be able to answer, but maybe you have some insight into. So, we all know the Elder Scrolls lore. It's fucking it's impossible. It's like there's a bunch of different contradictions. So, how do you guys as a team like manage that with one trying to be lore accurate so people don't throw a fit, and two trying to make the game still fun? Do you really worry about it, or do you just sort of do whatever you feel is best for
Um,
the mod?
no, yeah, we talk about that a lot. I think lore arguments are just the most frequent type of discussion in the channel, in the dev channels.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's Elder Scrolls, right? Every game has basically completely rebooted the setting. Um, and you have different people who like different games more or less. And also within that, you have different views on like how lore should be handled, right?
Hmm.
Uh, I think generally a view has been kind of we take what we think is best from each of the games. We don't necessarily look at the most recent stuff or
Hmm.
what the most recent canon is. We kind of take what we like whenever there's contradictions.
Hmm.
But we also a very big concern is does it fit the gameplay, right? Can we make this fun? Is this does this make for a fun mechanic? That kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's kind of a top priority, more or less. But obviously, you need the lore to have ideas to mechanize as well, right?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And speaking of, I'm going to jump back a little bit to that postmortem that you were talking about with the great houses. Are there other regions that you guys have been looking at that you're like, okay, well, this needs this still? And is there anywhere that you feel is done? Basically, I've been also asking teams, what would you say would be like the end state? Like what features need to still be added in that you really want to see besides, the great houses?
Yeah, that's a pretty straightforward question to answer for Elder Kings, I think, because we actually have our version isn't 1.0 yet, right? We have a
Right.
1.0 goal list, um, which fluctuates. Stuff has been removed from it, stuff has been added to it. I think right now it's a little smaller than the original one we come up with on release date,
Hmm.
but it's it also has a few new things. But generally, in terms of regions, I would say Somerset has a lot of planned stuff that isn't materialized, and that's partially because I think high elves aren't very popular.
No, I agree.
so,
Yeah, they're not.
so they just don't get a lot of attention as much. There have been a few like periods of excitement around high elves and a lot of content being made, but most of that isn't out. There is a praxis system, but it's very half baked in its current implementation. Um,
I see.
but we have ideas. We have not ideas. We have come up with like solutions to that and how to make it more integrated. And
Hmm.
it was originally designed with some of those in mind, but it just
Yeah, it just didn't.
really hasn't had the dev attention.
Yeah, it doesn't have the time yet. So with and speaking of comp patching, how has the comp patching been towards landless? Because I know, everybody knows. I see it in my comments. I see it. I peeked on the Discord every once in a while. And just as an FYI to people, I am not that frequently a member of a lot of Discords. I don't like stare at what things are doing. So the reason I didn't know about the 1.0 thing, I apologize. I should have probably looked into that. But how has the update towards landless been? Do you have any fun features planned, or are you just mostly trying to get it to work and then worrying about that stuff later?
um, we've already gotten it to work. So now any work that's being done on landless is features and flavor.
Oh,
As far as I'm aware.
that's good. I mean, that's exciting because it's not
Already
really.
seen some work from it. And there's actually been a few small teasers about it in the Discord. I don't think there's been any big announcement teaser, but there
That's
has
probably.
been a few impromptu secret teasers posted around.
Oh, you guys will have to go hunting for those. Like I said, the biggest thing I know, the reason I stay fairly up to date is that I have the announcements when they come to me on my Discord, but that is it. I like to be surprised too. So I'm
No, I mean I get it.
yeah. I mean, there's so many mods too. There's so many things to keep track of, and I have my own stuff that I do outside of this. So
I hate being in like 1,000 Discord servers and getting notifications from all of them. It's hell.
yeah. I have them all muted, except for sending me announcements because I don't want to know when somebody's arguing about lore. Maybe that's me. Maybe that's a hot take. So I guess just shifting again towards modding in general. Why did you choose Crusader Kings to mod specifically? Like, what about this made you interested?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of circumstantial in a lot of ways. I was into CK2 when I found out about Elder Kings 1, and I thought that was cool. I've always kind of been into modding and tinkering with games. Never really released anything. I did release a mod for CK3, actually. That was on the front page.
Oh, what was it?
It was the CK2 style icons thing.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
And then they made it so that it's like that in the game, so my mod kind of became obsolete. um,
I mean, that happens.
but no, I found out about EK1 when I was playing CK2 before CK3 even came out, and then when Crusader Kings 3 came out and they announced Elder Kings 2, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I saw the Khajiits, and they looked kind of weird. And then they looked impressive, but they looked kind of weird.
Mm,
Like impressive that someone was able to make that in this game, but
yeah.
at the time, but they looked very weird. And then Argonian, someone posted a joke picture of Argonians looking completely messed up, and I thought it was real. And then I messaged the guy who was working on Argonians.
And you were like, man, this is busted.
It's like, I need to help you, man. Like, where we go? What can you hand over to me?
Oh my god.
And that's basically how I got on the team. But Bugzor, by the way, my guy's Bugzor, he's amazing. And the kind of stuff he's come up with, and the visual improvements he's made with the beast races since then, that I didn't have a hand in, were amazing. And he made the whole visual of human turning into a lich over time. That was really nice.
Oh, that's a good one.
And a lot of other stuff. He's great. Oh, the glass as well. So I made the glass armor,
Uh-huh.
the model and the textures, but the actual effect of the shimmering through the glass and the refraction, he made a shader for that.
And the glass armor does look good. Which game would you say you took the most influence from like for that model?
Oh, okay, so I would say the most influence was from Project Tamriel for which is a
Oh
huge
boy, you don't gotta tell me. I know what it is.
Hell yeah. All that shit. But that no, I worked with that team. I worked with the main person who worked on like kind of Altma art direction. That's Heavenly on Project Unreal.
Mm-hmm.
And we came up with a bunch of cool stuff, and I came up with a bunch of cool stuff for Project Unreal, and they came up with a bunch of cool stuff for Elder Kings, and I actually made a high elf ship model for Project Unreal as well.
That's really cool. I mean, that's honestly that's probably the craziest thing because I love, as a lot of viewers know, and I'll tell you, I'm a huge like Morrowind fan, and I love like Tamriel Rebuilt, Project Tamriel. I was literally just talking with the people I interviewed before, the Dragon Age team, about how the Anvil update is supposed to be coming to Project Cyrodiil soon. And
Yeah.
you know, it's really exciting. And it's, if you guys have never checked out
Awesome.
those mods, they're incredible stuff. I mean, I think Project Tamriel is like what, a 22-year-old project now. It's insane.
Yeah, and the amount of content, the amount of world building they've done is insane. And if you get into their Discord or their forums, there's even more stuff that they made concept art for that they've never even made yet. So it's awesome.
Yeah, it's insane. And I mean, if you are, again, and I've been telling other people this too, and I'm going to let you know because I found out about this like a day ago. Before we wrap this up, there is a Mountain Blade Warband Elder Scrolls mod that came out like a year ago, which I just found out about. It takes place right after the king in Daggerfall is murdered, so it's like a Daggerfall mod. It's called the Struggle for the Iliac Bay. I'm just going to let everybody know about this. This is definitely going to be on the channel, FYI. This is a teaser, but it looks so sick. It's super cool, and you can play as a bunch of different races, and
It's pretty cool. I think like Elder Scrolls 2 inspired Mount and Blade mod makes a lot of sense actually.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was like, this is amazing. Nobody made it before, but also really confusing that they made a Warband mod in 2023. But hey, you know, do what you like.
Is the Bannerlord not very moddable, or does that game suck?
I think, you know, we're getting a little off topic, but I will talk a little bit about Bannerlord. I think Bannerlord just got. I think that with COVID, because it came out right around COVID, I think COVID really messed up the development of Bannerlord, and the team sort of, I think they just ran out of money and they just couldn't afford to really update the game. And so it released in like an early access state that they just said was finished.
Yeah. I played it when it released. It was really unstable.
Yeah, and it sort of became more stable, but they never added much beyond what was already there. And so it sort of just became a slightly patched version of that. And, you know, it's fine. But I
haven't revisited it since, so I didn't know.
Yeah, and it's almost been, it'll be 5 years next year, and there's like 2 major mods, maybe, if you want to call them major. They're like slight conversions, but you don't have anything like Pendor. You don't have anything like, you know, the Lord of the Rings mod. There is a Game of Thrones one that's pretty good, but
there was some crazy. Yeah, I played the Game of Thrones one back in the day. There's some crazy mods.
Oh yeah, for Warband, dude, it's insane. And I mean, like, you know, modding in general, which I'm kind of surprised that you didn't mention modding, like, you know, which actually you did now. I was surprised at first that you didn't mention modding like Morrowind or Oblivion or Skyrim, just because, you know, you like Elder Scrolls.
Yeah, I've never actually modded Morrowind or Oblivion. I've tried modding Skyrim. I never really got that far. I've made a few dungeons. Never released them.
Okay.
That's about it.
So is art direction something that you do like in real life? Are you an artist IRL?
Yeah, I'm a pretty honest. I work at a game studio in Copenhagen right now.
Oh,
But I also do a lot of freelance work, so I've no free time right now.
I would imagine. Well, what game studio, if you're allowed to say, or are you not?
Yeah, it's a studio called Bird Island, formerly known as Portaplay, which is a silly name.
Oh,
They made a game called Gerda, A Flame in the Winter,
okay. I think I've heard
which
it.
is on
Yeah.
Steam, and I worked on the DLC for that, which is called Leva's Story, which is one of the side characters from a main game.
Okay, that's really cool. It's always interesting to hear like what everybody does because there's actually quite a few like 3D modelers. Like if that's what they do, then they do that in real life. Because I can't imagine you just get into that as a hobby. It does not sound simple.
It's I mean, some people do. That's a crazy thing, but
Uh,
but yeah, it's a tough one to get into for sure.
Yeah, and in general, just because we'll wrap it up. I feel like we've been rambling a little bit about other mods, and I don't want to keep doing that. As much as I enjoy yapping about Elder Scrolls or just general modding.
Get back on track.
Yeah, a little back on track. So, what sort of advice would you give to somebody? You're somebody like anybody else who just like they liked a project, they were like, I want to be a part of this. What is your advice to somebody else who wants to do that? Like, how do they approach people? How do they approach the co-op? Like, what would you say that they should do?
Our advice has always kind of just been stop making shit, right? Like open up the game code, start figuring out how stuff works. There's actually developer notes that kind of explain how a lot of this stuff works. There's like .info files where you can just open in a text editor, and it just kind of tells you how everything works. There's also the Crusader Kings free wiki, which has a lot of information about what different attributes in the code do and variables and whatever else. That's very useful, but that becomes more useful the more you understand how the code works. I think the first step I would always say is look at the history code or look at yeah, I would say history. I would say history is like the first place to get started. Like, see if you can change someone's birth age, see if you can change someone's traits, and then just kind of see if you can add a new character and give them a title, and just kind of work from there if you want to get into CK3. But on the outside of things, yeah, just see if you can replace an icon. See how the 3D models are set up. It all kind of you can figure it out just from looking through the files. But there's a lot of places you can go for help, like the co-op. But I would really strongly recommend don't just go on there and ask people how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Start doing it, then ask people specific questions. That way you'll progress a lot faster and you'll annoy people a lot less.
Oh, yeah, definitely want to avoid annoying people because, but I mean, everybody on there it's very nice. I've talked to the people on the mod co-op. They're very
Don't give a
welcoming.
wrong idea. Don't give a wrong idea. The people that are super nice, people won't be an asshole to you for no reason.
Yeah,
But at the same time, like if you're just going in there completely clueless with no idea where to start, you're not gonna really get much use out of it, I
yeah.
think.
No, I agree. That's great advice. And I actually wanted to ask this, and I'm going to ask it now as our concluding question. So, in terms of art, is there anything that you're like especially proud of having done for Elder Kings 2? You've done a lot of it. So, is it the glass armor? Is it the Daedric armor, which also looks great? What is it?
That's an interesting question. So the Daedric armor was actually the first piece of clothing item I made for the mod, believe it or not. That's the
Wow.
very first thing that wasn't Argonian horns, I think. um, yeah, so I actually don't really like that one that much. I think it's pretty messy.
I
I
think.
think the texture on it came out quite blurry looking, and
Mm.
it looks a little oversized on characters, and but it still looks pretty cool. I think the overall design of it is pretty nice.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Oblivion one. I don't know if that's what you were going for, but that's what I
Yeah,
see
it
when I
was.
see it.
I think Oblivion was the biggest influence. I actually, so for that, I've never done that again. But for that armor, actually did a vote on what was people's favorite armor from each of the main games, the Daedric armor.
They said Oblivion?
And people at the time voted for Oblivion as their favorite Daedric armor design.
Wrong.
I would say I actually my favorite design, and this one is super over the top and super edgy, and that's part of why I like it. But the Elder Scrolls Online trailer armor, the one that's not in the game, but it's in the trailers. I think
Oh,
that one looks great.
yeah. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, it looks really sick. Some of the stuff for that looks great. I mean, Mana Marco in that looks so
But
sick.
the Morrowind one is, I would say, is right after that.
Oh yeah, the Morrowind one is great. I mean, Morrowind in general has such great designs for so much of it that it's hard not to be like, oh yeah, Morrowind is my favorite. There's some things from the other games that I really like
Would you
too.
say Morrowind is your favorite Danger Common design, or
Yeah, no,
are we gonna
absolutely, absolutely.
okay.
There's no way. It feels so cool
Yeah.
too once you get it because there's like one full set in the base game. So like when you have a full set, you feel like that dude.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like super hard to get, so it feels super rewarding.
Yeah.
But a lot of people hate on the Skyrim design, but when I was a kid and I played Skyrim for the first time, I thought that was the coolest fucking design of all time.
I think Skyrim has some great designs. I think their steel armor with the sweet winged helmet, the plate armor, I think it looks so
Oh
dope.
yeah,
That
I
armor is
love that.
sick. It's so
Some people
solid.
complain about that because of how stretchy it is with the animations, but
Uh,
as a design, I love it.
yeah, as a
Right?
design, it looks sick. The
I think you
dragon
shouldn't
armor,
hate on the design because of a rigging problem.
yeah, the dragon armor also great. I wish you
Yeah,
could get
great.
Ysgramor's armor because his looks sick. I was always
Oh
pissed
yeah,
that you couldn't.
I think there's been a couple of mods over the years for
Yeah, yeah. I just don't play Skyrim as much these days as I used to. But at the time, because when I first played, I mean, like I made a video about this not that long ago. For those of you who think I'm being redundant, I apologize. But where I talked about my background, where I didn't really mod any games until like I was like in my 20s. So I played all of these vanilla a
Yeah.
lot, and so like that wasn't an option for me at the time. And I was like, man, you can't get his armor. This is whack. But Skyrim has good design. I think people retroactively hate on it a lot because it's popular to
Yeah,
do.
I
And
mean, yeah, like it has a lot of flaws for sure, but like it was a good game, and a lot of the, I mean, I would say it has flaws in the visual design. And I
of
think that
course,
largely comes from the fact they didn't really have art direction, but they had a really fucking good concept artist, Adamowicz.
hmm
If you've never heard of him, I'm gonna spell the name out so you can show it on screen because he absolutely should. It's they posted his art. So Bethesda posted all of his concept art on Flickr. Adam Adamowicz unfortunately died from cancer. It's a great shame because the art direction, the last game he worked on was Fallout 4 for Bethesda, and that's the last game that looks good, judging by Starfield.
oof,
So
good
yeah.
lord. Let's not get into the Starfield thing. It's bad, but let's not. I'm kidding. I've not played it. I had no interest in it. I'm not a huge sci-fi dude anyway. And when they were like, it's like
Mm.
sci-fi but boring, I was like,
Yeah.
hard pass, hard pass. So good. I just want Elder Scrolls 6, although I don't think it's going to be any good. This is just a hot tomato take.
I'm still holding out a hope, but I have very little faith.
Yeah, I hopefully they can pull a Morrowind number 2 where they were like backs are against the wall and they're like, all right, well
Oh yeah, they just start going crazy and
let's just
cancel
do the
everything.
thing. Oh man, that'd be so sick. I really do. I'm a very big Morrow boomer, and I do think Oblivion is a good game too. And I know you said it's your least favorite art direction. I think that's a byproduct of them really trying to, and you can even hear it in the music, replicate like the Lord of the Rings, and they've said that many times anyway. It's just
Yeah,
it's obvious that that's what they were trying to do, and it
but
kind of
it's actually surprising to learn, but Oblivion didn't even have a concept artist for most of its production.
that's what
They only got Adamowicz on for the DLC, and prior to that, it was just the I think just the 3D artists who didn't really have that good design skills, from what I can tell.
and
They were kind of drawing really crude pencil drawings, and
and wow, jeez. I
that's
mean, and
kind
that
of
makes sense too because the Shivering Isles is
you
like
can tell the
easily
difference, right?
yeah.
Yeah, you can see the difference. Even Knights of the Nine, like the sets from that, is a much better design than the ones in vanilla.
Oh yeah, that set is great. The armor of what the hell is the dude's name? I can't remember his name. I'm
Pelennor.
blanking. Yeah, Pelennor, the elf slaying Terminator man. But all right, AJ, I appreciate you. That is a great bit of advice. I might even slap some of his art on in the background while we're
Hell
chatting.
yeah.
That way we can have something nice to look at while we're sitting. But I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for chatting with me. It's been fun talking, bullshitting about mods and just in general, like hearing the background. I think it definitely makes a lot of sense. Why the updates are infrequent. Plus, we had a lot of DLC that was pretty big. I mean, Roads to Power was huge, and then you had an update right after that, so I did not expect to see anything that soon. Hopefully we see you guys in the new year. You got some fun stuff cooking up, and hopefully we see these great house features soon.
The update will come. The mod is not dead. There's more work being done every single day and some great stuff to look forward to. So yeah, it'll be out when it's out.
What's up, everybody? It's Sol, and today I am here with a senior developer for the Warcraft Guardians of Azeroth 2, Dion. Dion, how are you?
I'm good.
So I'm excited to talk with you. You're actually the first interview I'm doing for this second round of interviews with developers. How does that feel?
Yay, I'm the first.
And so can you clarify what your position is? So you're a senior developer. Are there different senior devs that make up sort of like a council of developers for the mod, or is there like a main lead and you're just one of the, not underlings, but you know what I mean? Just like another person that they talk to.
So we have like a couple of ranks. We have foragers, people who are like working on the mod like for a long time. So they're either the people who like started the mod, or they're like because the senior devs that oversee everything and make all the decisions. And then we have senior devs, which are just, you know, developers that have contributed a lot or been around for a long time. And then we just have regular developers. So I am one of the foragers on the team. Okay.
And then, so as a forger, what's something that you've worked on, like specifically, or like what aspects have you worked on the most? If you could clarify.
Mostly I've been working on systems and documentation. So overall, if there's like something people want to add or they want to remove or change, they have to run it by me or one of the forgers first. Usually it's me because I'm the one like kind of like, if they add something, I'm gonna be the one dealing with it anyway. So I have to kind of like give the okay. Mostly I've been working on magic, kind of like the head of that.
Very exciting. I do have a question about that later, but we'll get to that in a second. First, I just wanted to clarify the positions because I wasn't sure. I noticed that you guys layered them differently than I've seen other teams do, so I was just curious. But I have to ask: a horde or alliance? We gotta answer for the people. They have to know.
Okay, this is a controversial question, but horde.
Oh,
it's always horde.
It's always horde. And then, did you play WoW or any of the Warcraft games? I assume so.
Yes, I've played Warcraft 3, Warcraft 2. Haven't played Warcraft 1 because I wasn't alive when it was released.
Right.
But, I mostly play WoW. I play retail for the most part. We have a lot of people who don't like retail, a lot of people who just play classic, but I like all types of WoW. Anything Warcraft, I love.
And then what? I want to know everything. We're going in the nitty gritty. So, what race and class do you usually, or what was the first one that you remember playing? Like, what's your fondest one?
Night Elf, Druid, always.
Wow, that's a classic. That is like an OG.
Yeah, now I just play Blood Elves and Taurens because they're funny looking.
Taurens are great. For me, I was also Horde, so it's not controversial. I know that they'd be hating. Everybody, it seems like every YouTuber is an Alliance fan for the most part, which is kind of surprising. But I was a Orc Warlock. That was one of my first. I think it was my first character, and then I think like a Troll Hunter. Either that or I always play a Dwarf. So I'll play like a Dwarf.
Oh yeah, I love Dwarves.
They're great. So there you go. Obviously, Horde is the best. We've answered all the questions you need to know. Moving on, though. So this is a sequel to Guardians of Azeroth for CK2. Did you have anything to do with that team? Is there a lot of overlap between those two teams? Like, did a bunch of people come over to work on the CK3 mod, or how did that work?
So I actually came only for the CK3 mod. I've played the CK2 mod a bit, but I think when the mod first started, there was a lot of overlap between the teams, and people eventually like kind of phased out, and then we have a new team. For the most part, there is a forager that was on the CK2 team, a couple people that work on CK2, but for the most part, it's a whole new team.
Okay, and then so how big is the team, the current team now?
I would say with the active developers, we have about 10. I would say a couple of them are coders, like me, people that at events, like, and design stuff. And then we have a couple of artists, a couple 2D artists that help with, like, assets when they can, a 3D artist, and then we have just a few translators that they don't really work with us, but we do interact with them because they are working on something.
I see. So they'll like put it in. Is the mod available in other languages?
Yeah, but we have it on submod just because it's easier to like manage on a submod than it is for us to do in the main mod, just so we don't have to like delay a release because it hasn't been fully translated, and also so we don't have bloat for people who don't actually like need the translation. And so,
what do you happen to know? What languages are available to people at the moment?
As far as I know, what's actively developed right now is Chinese and Russian. I think in the future, though, if I have time, I'll probably do like a Spanish translation when I have time.
That would be cool. Yeah, I could imagine it's quite an endeavor too, because obviously, it's a whole game on top of also having to mod in the modded aspects, or translate those too. So it's daunting. I give you guys credit for even doing it.
Yeah.
So is this the first mod you've like served in a senior capacity for? Like, is this the first time you've been a senior dev or like a lead in any way?
Yeah, for the most part, if it wasn't a solo project, this is the first mod I've actually led. I've worked on other mods, like maybe as a sub modder or just like working on mods like kind of randomly for different games, but this is the first team I've kind of led.
Okay, so you said different games. So what other games have you modded besides Crusader Kings?
I modded a little bit of Stellaris, a little bit of Sims, and a little bit of Skyrim back in the day.
Ooh, Skyrim modding. Wow. I think you're the first person who has actually modded something else. I think every person said either maybe Stellaris or like maybe another Paradox game, but never anything else, which has kind of surprised me. So that's interesting. How has the experience been? Do you like modding Paradox games? I've heard a lot of positives from people.
I think it's really cool that they have like their own scripting system. It kind of like removes a little bit of barrier to entry for like modding, because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know how to code. Well, you don't have to learn how to code. You just learn the Paradox scripting system. And I also like that with this, if you learn it for one game, it's very easy to transfer it to a different game. So you don't have to just mod CK3. Like if I know CK3 script, I can very easily learn Stellaris script.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. I mean, I've thought about it many times, but between this and then, regular life, I was like, I don't have any time for that. I've talked to so many modders, and it sounds like they barely even play the game. They just mod most of the time. So
yes, that's so true.
Okay, so first mod-related direct question, because it's something I noticed. I actually just recently, I think I sent it to you, a preview of the thumbnail, but I just played a pretty long playthrough. It was like 4 or 5 hours that I've edited down. But I noticed that a lot of the static models there's a ton of static models for one, and they have a lot of problems with like posing, which I mean, obviously they don't move. Is there a plan to make every model posable, or are some going to stay static? I was curious about this.
So right now we don't have a lot of 3D artists, so it's kind of hard to like convert. So right now static models are just ported from WoW or a different game, and they don't have any like, they're basically just on top of like a human. So there's a human there, but you can't see it, like the static models on top of it. And so what we're trying to do is like phase out some of the models. Like right now we're working on Tauren to make them actually work with the CK3 portrait system. And there was like support added for custom races recently, but we have no idea how to use it. They didn't leave any documentation. So hopefully we get some documentation for that, and it might make it way easier for us to actually be able to pose the models. Because I wouldn't mind making rigs for some of the static models. I just don't want to spend so much time if it's just not going to work.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, because I assumed it might have been ripped, because they do look really nice. And I was like, maybe they put it on a rig and it moves that way, because that would probably make the most sense. But that also seems like it'd be incredibly time consuming considering how many races there are. I mean, it's impressive how many you all have put in the game. I'm constantly surprised. And a lot of them are movable. I don't want people to misunderstand. There's quite a lot of work that's already done. I was just curious about, what the plans were. So there is a hole, though, for 3D modelers on the team.
Yes, I can 3D model, but I'm also working on like other stuff. So I want to finish that stuff first. Probably next year I'll start going through and making more 3D models. We do have one person though, but it's just taking a little while.
Well, in your honor, next year, when you're done with the Tauren, I'll do a playthrough here on the channel. That's a Soul Tomato promise, because I liked the Tauren back in the day. I just didn't play as them. I liked their area though; it was cool.
Yeah.
So the magic system, because you brought it up earlier, this was a huge question I had, because I swear I remember hearing about the magic system back in like 2023, maybe early 2024, and like that it was coming soon, quote TM, and now it's coming in 2025. Is there a reason that it's been delayed so long? Like, have there been any challenges that have come up with the system?
Yes. So the guy who originally started making the magic system a couple years ago, like deleted his Discord and disappeared. Like I don't know where he went. I don't have much information on it.
Oh wow.
But he was gone, and he did a lot of work on it. So we're building off of his work. We don't want to erase the work, but there's no documentation for what he left. So I started out from scratch back in January. I coded this entire system for casting spells, made a UI to show spells, and I'm still working on that now. Probably will revisit that. And like just adding the bare bones in the system. And so it's been delayed just because the amount of time it's taking, because it's just me and one other modder working on it right now. There's just a lot of events, a lot of effects. We want to make sure it works as well. So we need like testers. We have our testers go through and test each spell and each effect, and to just make sure everything works. And that's kind of the reason it's been delayed. We just want to make sure everything works, and we want to actually be able to finish everything, because the way it was proposed, like with Warcraft magic, you have the 6 regular spell schools, and you have elemental magic, and we were maybe going to just release the original 6 and then not do elemental. We were like, okay, that doesn't really make sense. So just making sure we have as much content as possible without it taking forever. So right now we pushed it up to like Q1 2025. I want to hope it's done by like February is what I'm kind of seeing, but I don't really know until we get there.
No, that's I think perfectly reasonable. Especially, obviously I'm sure you guys were keeping that kind of close to the vest. Somebody just up and leaving, that would definitely cause a delay. Because I was definitely confused, but that makes sense. That's clear. So is there anything besides Magic, and maybe I guess besides modeling the Tauren, your former friends, that you're looking forward to adding to the mod? Is there anything that you've wanted to add for a long time, or like you just had it on the horizon that you're hoping to do once Magic is implemented?
Definitely more stuff with Legion invasions, because right now, like if we were to add the Legion, like they would just be dudes that have a lot of prowess and coming in like destroying everything. But with the addition of Magic, we can have like a more magical aspect that can cast spells on people and like kind of be like annoying, like more of a nuisance, and more in general, just like more content for, I guess, like certain races. Like right now, I'm adding some content for Suramar, and elves in general, and just having like Magic is such an integral part of like their culture. So just not having that and being able to like show that is kind of like annoying. It's just kind of like Magic in general, I feel like it's kind of a bottleneck. It's kind of like stopping us from adding so much stuff because it's like, well, we need Magic to like kind of like actually show what's going on.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's the same way with the Blood Elves too. So it'd be difficult to portray them in an accurate sense without having Magic. So that makes sense. The Legion, are they going to be playable for the character, or is it just going to be like specifically antagonistic?
Definitely playable for the character. One thing I've always thought about in WoW, I'm like, why can't we just join a Legion? Like, what if I don't want to be part of like these people? Same thing with the Scourge. You can play as like the Scourge leader, so we're gonna have to make it something like that where you can actually join their forces, if not play as them.
That's really cool. I do like that. I was wondering, and maybe you can clarify. Are there any other like completed decision trees like Arthas? Because that one's really well done, and I've been wanting to like play other ones, but I have no idea where, like, if there is another one, because I've not really checked them out a ton. But are there other ones that people have made that maybe people just don't know about?
I know there's some things with like the Void Elves. You can build the Cosmic Observatory and you get like the Void Elf trait, but honestly, there's not much. One thing I'm kind of doing to combat that though is we're gonna like make a wiki, and we're gonna kind of like put everything that we've made into the mod so people can easily find like what's in or not. Because we get a lot of questions like, okay, what else can I do, guys? Like, what else? And I'm like, well, I don't really know, because I had to go through and look through the files because there's some things that were added before my time. So I would say around next year before Magic goes out, I'm probably gonna go through all of the decisions and all the events and put them in a wiki, and then just link that whenever people ask, what else can I do?
Oh, okay. No, I think that's great. A lot of mods that we've talked to here on the channel or shown on the channel have wikis, and I think that they're invaluable, especially for that exact reason. Like even for me, because I don't know everything. I know basically nothing, and so when I come into a mod, I'm like, oh, I hope I don't know what I'm looking for. I got lucky with the video that's going to be coming out. You guys will have already seen it by this point, so I can just say it with the landless dwarf that you guys made, because he has sort of enough backstory context to where you know what you should be doing. You should be killing dragons, which I was curious about that. Why were the dragons people? Are they going to eventually be a dragon, or is it just like a weird situation?
It's like that's like a really stretch goal. I want to be like, I know how like AGOT has great dragons. Their dragon system is great. I would add something like that where you could have like a form like where the dragons actually change into their dragon form instead of just being their massages. That'd be so cool.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured, because I couldn't remember at the time, but then when I was done recording, I was like, I think that there's something in the lore, I think, where they can turn into people. I can't remember, but because I feel like WoW has, or Warcraft in general, has really iconic drakes or dragons. They have a very specific look, and so I was a little taken aback for a moment, but I mean I still like it. I think that character's fun. So whoever made them, props to them. And speaking of making things, is there anything you're specifically proud of? I think, did I ask this already? Were you like proud of adding to the mod?
I am proud of, most of the stuff I've added aren't like super noticeable. Like honestly, most of the things I've added in the mod so far, I'm just fixing bugs, like, to be honest. But what I'm working on, I'm just really proud of the magic system and how far it's come along. And eventually, hopefully things like professions and things like that also will be in the mod. I think what I'm most proud of in the mod that's going to be added as of next week is probably the Sovengarde content. I gave Elisand a whole new look. I added some flavorful backgrounds and events, and that's going to be super cool, I think.
That'll be really neat. So what is it about Warcraft in general? We're gonna jump into that really quick, and then we'll jump into some more modder related questions, but to wrap it up. But what is it about the world of Warcraft, Azeroth, whatever, that you just enjoy? Why did that draw you in? Why this and not another mod or another world?
It's just the depth of all the lore. Everything has like a reason. Like even if you look at dev diaries for WoW or just look more into like what the devs were doing, even for like little races, like little random creatures like on a certain island, they have like lore, they have information, they have cultural traditions and reason why they do things. And I think that's just so cool to have to even if there's some things in the manga that make up, like there's information there. There's just really good world building, I feel like, in general in the Warcraft universe.
No, I agree. I think that's absolutely correct. I've always loved that aspect. There's a lot of building upon itself that Warcraft does specifically that I think a lot of things could do to emulate, especially with how it, when it went to WoW from the old Warcraft games. I mean, you said you played Warcraft 3. I remember being like amazed when Wrath of the Lich King came out, because I was like, oh my God, it's Arthas. Like, he was a huge deal, because it was such a big part of the RTS. So I definitely agree the lore is phenomenal. And so going, I guess, forward with into the modding aspect now, what advice would you give somebody who is wanting to get into modding? You said it's accessible, and we've heard that a lot. But you guys are a relatively small team, probably looking for people. What would you give somebody as advice?
Start small and test your stuff very often. One of the first things I did a lot, like make mistakes when I started modding, was that I would try to make something really big, and I ended up just burning myself out and making a lot of mistakes, and it wouldn't work, and it just ended up taking like way longer. So I think maybe when you start modding, adding a few events would be like the best thing to start with, and then maybe adding a decision, things like that. Rather than maybe trying to come up with a whole new system, because you end up just frustrating yourself and might like end up quitting if you start trying to add a bunch of stuff that takes a lot of work.
Are there any mods that you like that are there any, like, when you first started, did you try to make like your own total conversion mod, or like a big mod that you ended up having to shelve or something?
When I first started, I tried to make a sub mod for Goa that added like a new tournament type, like the Dark Moon Fair and stuff like that, and I actually got pretty far. But it took so long because I was just trying to do something I didn't know how to do. So I think that's kind of like where I got that like notion from. It's just, it would have been better for me to just start out making some flavor events than it would for me to start making this whole new system, like event activity type thing.
No, that makes sense. The Darkmoon Fair would be really cool to see in the mod, though. That would be actually amazing. So hopefully you come back to that in the future.
I definitely will.
Oh yeah, awesome. Well, I listen, I appreciate you sitting here and talking with us. I didn't have any more questions that I had written down, but is there anything else that you'd like to share about the mod? Is there any way to support the team? Do you guys do like a Patreon? Are you actively seeking any sort of like, new members to the mod team? Like besides 3D modelers, are you looking for like testers or anything? Let the people know, I guess, what you're looking for.
Well, we do have a Patreon. You can choose to support us if you'd like. If not, it's fine. Patreons do get a character in the mod. Kind of like we have like landless characters, and we have some land spots available. So it's not like you're just doing it for nothing. And then we also kind of need anybody that would help. Definitely testers. We do have public testing as well. So even if you don't want to commit to like working on the mod, just helping us out with certain branches, I'll usually give a ping and be like, hey guys, I just added this, can you make sure it works? Because I can test it myself, but there's some things testers will always pick up that I never pick up. Anybody who knows anything about the CK3 scripting system, even if you know just how to make events, that would be great. 2D artists definitely are helpful. Just anybody really that is willing to help out, even if it's not forever, even if it's just for a bit.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, thank you, Dion. I appreciate your time, and let's go on to the next one. What's up, everybody? It's Soul. Today I'm here with the AGOT lead and creator or co-creator, Fox Willow.
Hello?
Hello. Questionable hello. So you are how long have you been involved with AGOT? I just asked you like a moment ago. It sounds like you were involved with its inception from the CK2 days and have remained at its helm up until now.
Yes. I've been around probably circa 2016.
Okay.
Maybe 15.
And so how long has because I can't remember. So I think the first version came out, like 2015, 2014 maybe?
I think CK2 AGOT was out in 12.
Oh my god. I should know this because I just did a video about it, but that sounds right actually now that you say it. So you came around 2016. What were you working on when you first started?
The first thing that would be noteworthy that I did from the CK2 mod was just coat of arms work, graphic work, traits, and also the guess and check hacking together of getting the Dornish shields to be round.
Oh boy.
For that heraldry.
How was that?
Little stuff like that. It was fine. We have a lot more specialized people doing things smarter now. So my particular brand of guess and check is not as necessary, but yeah, it was a lot of just guess and check and Wild West of getting whatever to work.
Right. Okay. So
functional.
So you've been involved since CK2. Did you transfer into more of like a lead role towards the end of CK2's run or like the beginning of CK3's? I'm assuming you were involved with the creation of this mod.
Yeah, Alex, dear Lord, I'm sorry, my man. He's Polish. I believe it's Kukjaka or Kukjaka. Me, a guy who went by Paxter, and one or two other members from the CK2 team. Because we had like 8 or so people generally active at all, as that was kind of dying down, and then we had like a split off where several of us were getting prepped for the CK3 mod. So we were doing some work in like 2019, like getting ready and just comparing things before having any kind of access or gameplay or the release, like comparing things with like Imperator and just like making guesswork based on that.
Mm-hmm. And so when did you? So you didn't obviously have access to the game because I'm trying to remember, when did the mod come out proper? Was it 2021 or 2022?
The mod came out in March, April of 23.
Real? Oh, you're right. Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
We're kind of new boys still,
which is crazy because, and I did want to ask about this. So you're the head. This is easily one of the most popular mods, like for CK3, probably for any Paradox game. I mean, it's Game of Thrones. It's a huge IP. How is it organized? Like, how is it structured? There has to be a ton of you. I've been curious to know, like, behind the scenes, how, like, what the numbers are, and then how everything's broken down, because you guys pump out updates and patches like crazy.
We mostly have, Lord, what would it be? I think there's 5 leads with me now.
Okay.
And then we have like some people in like a head role, which would like our tier system is just we have leads and then we have heads and then we have everyone else. And it's mostly, I mean, everyone works together and every department has a ton of overlap. So, but we do try and have some kind of directive flow for directional, like, let's actually do this thing.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. So how do you decide on what you want to do? Because this most recent update, it kind of came out of nowhere. At the time of recording this, I'm talking about the Defiance of Deskendale and, the Peak Uprising. I have no idea if you're going to release another one out of nowhere because, it seems like you guys' prerogative. But
maybe that there's at least one more. No. It's like kicking.
Are you for real? Oh my God. Is it? Okay, so this is coming out at the end of December. Will it be out by then?
You know we don't do timelines.
Okay, I won't ask then. I'm not going to ask you to spoil it. I am always curious because I like to use these as little teasers, but if you don't want to spoil anything. So there's another one kicking around. Is it going to be bigger in nature than the other two? Because these are like sort of like smaller events. I mean, the Defiance of Duskendale is a big catalyst for the Mad King's fall, so that's like a big deal. But you know what I mean? Like maybe, I don't know. Is it a long-awaited one? I'm trying not to spoil this too much.
No.
Okay.
It would be one. It'll be one that people find fun because you can take a particular chunk of the recent-ish story and go in a different direction.
Okay. Okay.
It's one of those type of things where there's definitely threads that are still relevant. So
Okay. So it's like an in between.
yeah, it's the same kind of thing. It's it's funny because we actually just we're having a whole discussion leadership wise on like what kind of bookmarks and about them being the ones that we designated sandbox versus like heavily story centric.
Mhm.
So, and it's kind of an in-betweener, I think.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I think honestly that a lot of people prefer those because the heavily narrative ones can sometimes feel, at least from my perspective, like you should be participating in the narratives, and if you're not, you're sort of just there. Which is fine. I mean, I'm sure people like to play like that, but I like to be involved with the action. But I don't feel as pressured, like with the Jaheira start, where I'm just like bopping around. That's when I did one of my series in, and I enjoyed it a lot. So it's good to know there's going to be more. I always love more bookmarks. I'm baffled that there's going to be another one probably in the next like month or two. So you guys go off. You don't do timelines, but do you happen to know, are you currently working on like a major update? Anything you could tease about that? You don't have to, again. I'm just curious.
With regards to the bookmark, it's just one of those things that like when the people working on it get done, it gets done.
No, yeah, totally.
So, and I mean, the game in general, it's the slow, steady eastward expansion. I mean, back at ModCon, Drandis and I released the joint Bloody Blah with us doing Bravos together.
Mm-hmm.
I've done chunks of the hills of Norvos, the Selhoris region, down to Volantis. Like these are things that we're working on getting the mapping done and Drandis getting the painting done, and then we will shape the provinces to our map work. And then once we import all that, it's the slow, steady march. It's just that we're very particular and have a high standard, so it takes us a bit to get over there.
No, I think that makes sense. So that I actually wanted to clarify that for listeners. So people who aren't, maybe they don't follow the mod as closely. What do you're the head, obviously you're in charge of everybody. I mean, as much as somebody wants to call themselves in charge of people, but what do you do as far as like modding wise go? Like what's your specialty? It sounds like it's mapping from what you're saying and from what I've seen.
Yeah, mapping, graphics of all kinds, the little bookmark, stained glass stuff, trade icons, the naming, world building, like the names for everything across Westeros, that kind of shit.
Oh wow, that's actually quite a lot for a lead specifically. So how do you? And this is something I was quite curious about because I know you're a busy person. We had to really like find the time to do this interview. How do you find the time to with your normal everyday life also manage this and mod? What is again one of the biggest mods, and also I mean you guys, like I said, you update so frequently. It seems like you really put in the work as a team to get it done.
We enjoy it is mostly, I mean, for me personally, I kind of wind up just saying that like I do art direction for my job. So it's just kind of a creative, if something's getting stuck somewhere professionally, I can just be like, let me draw several coat of arms real quick and get some extra houses taken care of and stuff like that. So it can be bounced around some, and yeah, I mean, long debates and discussions on what the community is going to prefer when it comes to certain buffs and values for a building somewhere can be a little more tedious, but
Right. No, absolutely. So I meant to ask this at the beginning, but we got totally snaked around my questions, my little notes that I have here. I'm curious. You're obviously a big Game of Thrones fan or World of Ice and Fire fan. Do you have a favorite region or house or character? You can answer all three of those if you want, but I wanted to know. I like to ask an easy one at the beginning. We sort of skipped that 10 minutes ago, but we can do it now.
region or house or character. It would be House Wall.
Okay.
And at this point, I have devolved into embracing the dumbest things, and for Wall, it's their sigil is 3 buckets.
Yep,
You
I was gonna
you can't get much stupider. So that's great. The Farmans are a better version. So like occasionally I like the Farmans. Everyone, I used to post on our Discord server all the time about a CK2 run I did with the Celtigars because crabs.
Yeah, they're funny.
So they're a more commonly used dumb house to play. So, but yeah, it's those. God, on the top of my head, I know there's definitely like 2 or 3 others too that are just kind of like dumb coat of arms. So I'm like, I love this house now. Like once you make enough, you're just like, never mind. You take ownership of it when you've made an area. So it's hard. I used to have more strong opinions, and now like as we've like meticulously crafted all across the map, I'm just like, well, I really love the Northern Vale. I also love the normal Vale. I also love the mountains parts of the Vale. I also like the Riverlands. So it's just.
But you would say
I get really attached to all of it.
It sounds like you would say though that the Vale was like maybe the one that you used to pick.
I just started saying Vale.
Oh, you were just like, I wasn't sure if maybe it was like a Freudian slip. Do you have a favorite character?
Oh, favorite character.
That's a hard question. I know.
Wouldn't be like the boring one to say.
You could pick the boring one.
No, I'm not gonna pick a boring one. I'd say Dick Crab is kind of fun.
That is a good one. I was gonna say my boring one, or my one is I like Baylor Breakspear. That's my favorite character, even though he's only in like one story. But I think he's a cool character, cool guy, top Targaryen in my opinion. That's not a hot take, but that's me. Oh my god. So I've talked about this with the Lord of the Rings team. So if with respect to balancing your own vision with the source material, how does the team manage that? Because from what I've seen, you guys try to be as lore accurate as possible. So do you have like designated lore people on the team and then you sort of bounce off of them? Like how does that work?
Yeah, we have world building, which I'm dealing with as well, and then Bear's another lead that primarily deals in world building. And then we'll have, I'm not going to sit and list
No, it's okay.
40 people, but we have like 10 people and then it'll be, because there's probably 80 people active-ish on our server, I would say.
Oh my god.
On the dev server, yeah. And then it'll be like whoever decides that they really care about this one thing right now, will swing in on those kind of discussions. So it winds up being trying to direct a bunch of different opinions, gauge which ones are remotely reasonable, play with the lore, and then figure out like where's the balance between does that work for the game at all.
So is the focus usually on is it fun first and then is it lore appropriate second, or is it, I guess the debate is finding the balance between those two?
Yes. The answer is just yes.
Oh,
and
no.
it changes each discussion, each specific instance, it changes a little bit. Sometimes you give a little and we just go with a super lore friendly thing that's just like not insignificant gameplay wise. So it's like there's no point in even doing it. Sometimes you just lean into like, but this would be very fun and it doesn't really violate anything, so we should do that. And we do try and avoid as much as possible changing anything from the lore. So but it's more having to adjust certain things to fit how the game works, including like the amount of people who are given a random title that just doesn't really necessarily fit in with like the game's console system.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to just be like, sliding someone in as a Master at Arms when like that's not the thing they're discussed as. Stuff like that too.
Yeah, I guess having to fit it within the framework of Crusader Kings at times can be difficult. Let's rewind, I guess. So you started off with CK2. You have a background in art direction, and I'm assuming that's what led you to want to make Coat of Arms. Is this the first game you've really modded? Is like Crusader Kings all you mod? Do you mod other things? Like where did the origin of the modder begin?
I began modding with 3D and texture work in 2002 maybe?
Oh wow, we're going way back.
As a child, playing EA Sports NHL games.
Oh wow. Okay. Elaborate on that a little bit. What were you doing?
Well, the games were, oh god, man, it's so funny that like these things were really cool when you were little, and then you look back and you're like, holy crap, this game was awful. Or just like the graphics, it's
Right.
just, and it was a case where there's like 20 players per team, and like nowadays those games are much better at rounding out the entirety of the league, but like the player's face file specifically was called the cyberface, and it would usually only be like 10 players per team. Even EA Sports even gave them a face. So it would be, I ran a community back then with a bunch of people that modded those games, and we would put out cyberface packs to like make sure all the characters had faces so that it would be, filled out. And there was a bunch of like different goalie equipment, just stuff like that. A ton of graphical enhancements. It was mostly graphical. Some people did some mechanical stuff with the game though.
Okay. So you did mention that you do modeling. So you do modeling for AGOT. What sort of things do you model, or do you not model for AGOT?
Ooh, I do not model anymore.
Oh.
I played with that many years ago. It's too much for me now.
Okay, so
just draw things.
So you've moved on from that. So do you, as an artistic person in your profession, are you mainly like an artist, I suppose? Like, do you draw? Is that like what your occupation is?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll go with that. That works. I'm
Sure.
an art director for a clothing company, so.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's really cool. I just, when you said art director, I was like, that could be any number of things, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. We do collaborations with bands, so it's mostly making clothing working with clients and bands and stuff.
I mean, that sounds pretty rad. That sounds like a good time, and that does translate well. I'm super tickled that you do the stained glass thing, because I really wanted to know, and I actually had written this down because I was like, man, I really want to get a stained glass thing made for my channel at some point. So if you ever bored, I might hit you up on that.
I will consider it.
I'm just, you don't have to. There's no pressure. I appreciate this enough. So I guess. Has there been an instant, this is kind of jumping back to my previous question, where something that you maybe wanted to add, like how much, I guess, let me rewind a little bit. How much of a democratic process is the team as a whole, or do you have like the final say? Like if everybody really likes something but you didn't, do you have the power to like veto it? Like how does that work within the like your organizational structure? Everybody's different, so I'm just curious.
I think respect of the team and other leads wise, like if I really went like maybe that would, it's just never happened.
Right.
If like at this point there's been enough done and enough like intense and cohesive friendships, and if I was like, I absolutely am putting my foot down and insist that we don't do or do this thing, I don't think anyone would love it, but I think it would be okay.
Mm-hmm.
But we are very, I mean, and that's the same thing with all of the other leads as well, though. Like if any of them were just like, look, 1,000% this just isn't happening, then the rest of us will usually go, yep, okay, we're with you on that. That's fine. And that's top down, like, so like there's a pretty cohesive going on with the leads, and then the 5 or so people who are also heads of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, I mean, it is dumb. Like I said, that we'll end up with a bunch of discussion, and it's just directing that kind of discussion down into something that can actually be worked on.
Right. And so how often do you guys do like like meetings like this, like where you would be chatting, or do you just do like, like text meetings where everybody's just sort of feverishly typing stuff so you can stay organized? Like how does the team organize itself?
We definitely have arguments in text, arguments, discussions, okay. But yeah, I mean, it is baffling how much longer a fucking text chat conversation takes than joining a call. We've also had many 10 plus dev calls, like weekly in the very least. Like we'll frequently have five or six people just chilling out in voice call together, like nearly every night.
Oh wow.
So we'll go over like little things as they pop up, or direct each other to like, oh, so and so says to try out this, and like we'll go to that corresponding channel and address whatever the thing is or the idea.
Okay. So as far as the team goes now, and I've been asking every team this just because, there's people who listen to these that are interested in, modding. So are there any holes that you're currently looking to fill or that you're always looking to fill? And I guess what would those be?
At the moment, I guess it would be 3D modelers.
Every team has said this.
Every team is gonna say, and like I know that I've heard through grapevines that like other people are like, AGOT's stealing all the 3D modelers, and then we're still also going, we also want the 3D model. If anyone has them, just continue to give them.
So I guess that is a good segue here. So as this this huge mod that people I guess maybe look up to and in some cases envy, have you experienced any animosity? I would assume not though, because the community seems to all be pretty friendly. You don't have to like name names or anything, but has that caused any like people to have negative perceptions of people within the team because they know they work on AGOT and maybe AGOT is seen as like this favorite child or whatever?
I really want to make the joke of no, I just absolutely fucking hate and then name someone, but I'm not super engaged outside of my domain.
Okay.
So like I occasionally have some conversations with people on the mod co-op and rarely go back and forth with some of the people from other dev teams. But I mean, we have a bunch of people that are on other mods with us. I mean, Veerwood's on another team, and then like we have a bunch of guys doing other stuff. So I don't have any. I haven't. I don't notice any animosity, but I'm literally just in my lane.
Right. So you're only on this team.
Sometimes look outside of my lane. Yes.
Okay.
Which I occasionally get asked for help somewhere, and then I say maybe, and then I just get busy.
Okay. So you do engage though in the mod co-op, which is a good resource. I've mentioned it a couple times. So I guess if people are adoring fans, they can bother you there. I'm not suggesting that. Don't actually do that. But I guess if people were looking to chat, how approachable would you say you are to somebody who, if they had like a question, would you prefer them to go to somebody else? Like
it's a die roll.
No, I mean, that's fair.
It doesn't bother me. If someone sends me a dumb question, there's sometimes I respond. Not that all questions are dumb, but the dumb ones are the funner ones. And if someone sends me a dumb question, like sometimes I respond to it and I'm nice about it. So
well, that is good. That's good of you. So
I can sometimes be nice, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, so with I want to now go back to the mapping thing. We talked a little bit about organization and stuff. So because that's like what you specialize in, well, in art, obviously, but art's a little more broad. But with mapping, I remember that Dev Diary came out about like patterns of what was it, like birds and like in erosion. It was like huge document. Was that, I can't remember. Was that you who made that, or who made this?
I would have discussed some things with him, but that would have been Drandis.
Oh my god! So is that what they do? Like, do they specifically work on that in real life? And they were like, "I'm going to put this in here."
Drandis has some I guess ambiguous level. I'm not gonna be like dropping what he does or something, but
No, it's okay.
he's very he's very knowledgeable, and he originally came to us wanting to work on portraits, and then like I'm working on the hype map, and the map painting wasn't really up to snuff, and I was just like, he offered up his hand to help, and then it turned out that he was ridiculously exceptional at it. And then we've become close and worked hundreds of hours together over like, what do we want to do here, what would meet player expectation, what things like happen in the real world but look too crazy. So like if we put that in the game, someone would go, oh, that's fake, you know, because there's definitely places in the world where like if you put that in the game, someone's gonna, you know, it. So it's always this tempering expectation, and then he has all this knowledge of like, I mean, I usually just nod and smile and say sure. Like I put a mountain chain somewhere because my big thing is like water goes somewhere, so we just make sure that every pixel on the map, I know exactly where that water would go, and like that does a really good job of like naturally carving a pretty good height map. And then he comes in with like, oh yeah, I wanted this area to be tropic, and like there's gonna be a rain shadow because of this mountain, and I'm like, okay, that sounds great. Whatever you do, it's gonna be. And I mean, we all always love whatever he paints on top of. I guess we usually go with I'm giving him a canvas, and like whatever he paints on top of it's fun.
Oh, okay. So it's like, so it's sort of like you are, you know, I guess the brick, and he's the mortar building the rest of the wall, like refining it, I suppose.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of metaphors that almost work. So.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. I started talking, and it quickly devolved.
Well, yeah. I mean, even me saying canvas, and then but I'm like, man, the height map's a lot more than just a canvas. It's not flat.
Yeah, it felt
right?
a bit reductive. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, well, I'll just knock myself down a couple notches. It's fine.
Which, speaking of the map, you know, it is beautiful. I definitely notice it as somebody who stares at this game. Not as much as y'all, I'm sure, because I from what I've heard from many of the modders, nobody actually plays the game. They just mod it and they just stare at it all day. I don't know if that's the case for you.
Oh yeah, like I'll tell you. Hold on, let me check my Steam.
Oh boy.
I know for a fact that I've played. What does it tell me? 8,300 hours. I may. First off, a lot of that is idle time, but I may have played 100 hours.
That is absolutely insane. I cannot even fathom. And yeah, like, and so much of that is like you're modding, you're modeling. And what do you use, by the way, when you're making the map? Like what program is that?
I'm almost always just in Photoshop.
Really? Is that how that works? I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it in game but I mean, I'm picky. Like I make sure that every river starts at. I mean, the height map's grayscale, so I don't know how much you're aware, but the height map's grayscale. So like the lighter the color is, the higher it is. So I like make sure that the lighter color is the tip of the river, and like it's always flowing downhill. And then when you just kind of spread that out and mash them into each other, like you wind up getting a decent start. And then I go from there, and I there's no way, I don't believe there's any way to really do that from the in-game map editor.
Yeah, I can't imagine. So how I'm trying to think of how to word this question. So a big complaint that I see, you know, and I'm sure you might know what I'm talking about here while I'm starting, is performance. Obviously, there's the AGOT Mini and Micro, which I don't actually know what those change because I've not used them too much. I know I've read them before, and I've recommended them to people to help with their RAM usage. But how do you get this thing to run with such detail? Like, it is incredibly. I feel like it's magic. I don't know how you guys are getting this thing to operate, because I feel like the level of detail on the map, or even in the world itself, like with everything running at the same time, is ridiculous. Like, what are you guys doing? What are you doing back there? I don't know if that's a good question.
I don't know if it is either.
I don't know.
What do you mean? Like,
so
are you saying like we're being successful, and how are we doing that? Or are you saying like?
Yes, that was what I was trying to piece out. I had the question sort of sitting in my mind, but I had no idea how to word it, as you just witnessed.
Okay, well, we've dealt with a bunch of performance slowdowns, problems over the well, I guess year and a half here. And before that, and there's a couple benchmarking programs. The other more technical leads have been doing a bunch of testing and stuff to optimize performance. Several other people have been doing stuff to optimize performance. We constantly have people suggest, like, someone's like, my game crashed, so you guys are doing a bad job. And
Yeah.
that isn't helpful. You're wrong, and that's not helpful. Like, I need so much more information from you. But we've the mini and the micro was a newer swing. God, those might be several months old now by now though. We actually incorporated mini. I believe we incorporated mini directly into the game.
Okay.
One of the things we found in like constantly trying to maximize our performance is, and there's areas where we're functioning better than vanilla, and there's areas where we still lag behind, but it's not by that much.
Mm-hmm.
So there's things where, when it came down to it, the actual textures for the map were, I think they're at 1024, 1024 for vanilla, and that's because vanilla's map painting just usually has like several counties where it's mostly just one texture.
Mm-hmm.
And Drandis is not about that at all. Like the entire map is just like always. He's always got four textures blended all over this. So we discovered that was actually part of our performance hit, was like he was just doing too good of a job.
Oh, there was
So
I see.
Mini was actually having the to 512 by 512 the textures. So which you have the texture size, but it makes the file size a quarter, and it was like a significant performance boost. And then we put out mini and micro. Micro's even smaller. And then I actually was pushing back as well, but the team convinced Strandis and I that like mini could just go straight into the main mod because he has blended so many things that like you didn't even see the difference.
Oh.
The 1000K textures, or the 1K texture versus the 500 texture, like there's no visible difference, and we were saving a ton of file size, and it was less intensive for whatever reason on people zooming in and out on areas of the map. But just because the mask PNG files, like there's just so many at once that are being read, that like all the slight pixels, I guess the calculation wasn't was difficult or something, but so that that's one of the more recent areas where we were like, finally we found like we finally found a thing that we've made a significant stride in. But I think there's been a lot of technical side improvements that I've been like, yep, that sounds great, because why wouldn't I say that? So
no, that makes total sense.
Occasionally someone's like, should we and it's like, yes, of course. I don't even want the details. Like the answer is just yes. If it fixes the thing, do the thing.
So always for fixing. Yep. No, that makes total sense. So in an effort to, not wrap this up, but I'm not trying to keep you for a million years. I have a couple more questions. I'm prepping you now. The first one is, so you started with, making coat of arms, making, other things. What would you recommend to somebody who wanted to get into modding? I've been asking everybody this. I feel like it's a good question, as a person who's now been doing this for apparently like 22 years in some capacity. You probably have a lot more insight than other people. So what do you suggest? What do you recommend for somebody who's like, I want to mod, but I don't really know,
It does matter like what level you're coming at that from, because I started everything for, like you said, like 20 plus years has been literally just fuck with shit. Just guess and check enough. Someone, even in the mod co-op is a great spot to be like, hey, I just want to screw with blank, and someone is gonna give you some kind of lead on how to make that happen. So it really comes down to just screw with things for a little bit and make the thing happen. And first off, you're gonna mess it up like 40 times in a row, but eventually the damn thing will work. And that's like no knowledge whatsoever. Like it really, like, the code isn't that intimidating, I guess. Like, you can usually suss out what happened by just copying something, especially like history files, or someone's like, ooh, I really want this character to be higher intelligence, then just go do it. Like, a lot of times people make these suggestions, and it's like, if you just really want that character overpowered, just go do it yourself. Like, this isn't difficult. And then you're really your foot in the door to figuring out how to make a mod right there and then.
No, that's great. That's wonderful. And then on the flip side, because there's people listening to this and people that I've interviewed who are like first time leads, new leads, what is your advice to somebody who is, they are modding, they're doing a big project like a total conversion mod, maybe they're on a small team, maybe they're leading a small team. What is because you've been doing this, I don't know, managing this mod now for, I guess, because it's only been out for like a year, but since 2019, we'll say. What advice would you offer to somebody who's like leading a team or leading a total conversion mod in that vein, like things that have helped you along the way?
Oh man, I guess it would require. That's just so general.
I know, yeah.
It really requires dealing with like what are your specific, like what are the specific like roadblocks you're hitting, and make sure that it's not your own personality that's causing them. But I mean, find people you trust and make sure that they have the space to just do whatever they feel like doing. And I mean, that's been our biggest thing is, I mean, these bookmarks were almost entirely created by people that just had a passion to do the thing, and it's just like, let them go. And absolutely, see that through. And we have, I mean, that's going on with bookmarks, that's going on with events, that's going on with mechanics, that's going on with dragons.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Which was God, there must have been 10 people at least with hands in the bowl for dragons. And then the like continual discussions on what we had to do to tweak and fix and remove things. And it's be malleable, I guess, is really the biggest thing. Like, you're gonna make the wrong decision for sure, and just be like, yeah, that wasn't a great idea, and like be willing to just revert that decision, and make sure everyone's like, I think that's my biggest thing is be able to walk back the thing when it's just a bad idea and go, like, people aren't always right, so like I'm not always right, and an idea is not always going to fly, it's just not going to work out. And then also make sure that if you enact something, and someone under you enacts something, like if it doesn't work, we can just remove it. Like if someone really doesn't like the shape of a duchy once it's released, like we can just change that. It's not like this doesn't need to be all end all. Like we don't need to 100% this. You just need to get it at 90. Just put it out and make adjustments. Like it doesn't need to be perfect. And I think everyone, that's the thing I think we still we still struggle with. And I'm assuming everyone is like just really, really, really wanting to do the best possible job. And then like having a 4-hour discussion about a thing that 7 people in the community care about.
Yeah, so I guess just don't lose sight of your scope. Like
you can always change it.
Yeah, worry about the things that matter. No, that's great. And I want to thank you for your time. I know you're busy. I know you got a lot of 8,000 hours of modding to do. But I think you've offered some great insight here, and I hope people have enjoyed this. Not a whole lot of, little sneak previews, but I feel like you guys are going to find those out soon enough. And one last question, and this is, I guess, about your own future. Like, how long do you foresee yourself doing this as somebody who's been doing this for like 20 years?
I have no idea.
That's a good answer.
I see no reason to stop anytime soon.
Good, because we all enjoy it. We all enjoy seeing your work, and I've enjoyed my time with you. So thank you very much, Fonz.